What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, today marks a special day in the calendar for me and you if you're a fan of my channel. That is right. You guys loved it last year. I'm bringing it back. This is the start of movie week. This is something that I'm probably going to do every December. 7 days, 7 movies in a row, all from different subreddits, selecting the very best stories from each subreddit from the entire year. And today we're starting off with EntitledParents, entitled people in general. It's your favorite subreddit. It has been for 5 years. So what better way to kickstart this week than with some entitled people content? So sit back, relax, and get ready for 3 hours of the very best entitled people and entitled parent stories of 2024. Before then, over the next 6 days, some similar content from similar subreddits that you guys know and love. Rounding things off on the 8th day, Christmas Day, with what I always do, which is 12 hours of Reddit stories. It's a mental week. If you like content, there's going to be a lot of it. So without further ado, here we go. My sister-in-law is stealing from me and using her baby as an excuse. My sister-in-law, Jessica, who is 29, and her husband, my brother, Liam, who is 32, are staying with me, a 27-year-old woman, and my wife, who is 30, due to foundation troubles at their own home. Simply put, she's been an absolute nightmare when it comes to taking things that aren't hers and brushing them off because she needs them due to her baby, my nephew, Liam Jr., who is 3 months. I'll just list the worst of it, but do note, this is a very condensed list. First, she took my expensive hair products made specifically for thick hair because, and I quote, Liam Jr. can't handle strong scents, and yours are just gentler on his nose. She used an entire 16-ounce bottle of conditioner in 3 days. Second, I caught her trying to take the food I ordered for everyone into her room after it was delivered. I ordered almost 6 full meals to dish out for the entire house, and she was just holding this large paper bag in her room. She told me she was just sorting through it to find her food, but she was sitting down with chopsticks and the door was closed, so I call BS. 3. All of my snacks. My pantry has a shelf labeled specifically for me due to a mild food allergy that has all the snacks that I bought. I keep seeing her walking back and forth past my room with my snacks. If my wife or I try to confront her, she cries that she's breastfeeding and she needs the energy. Then she'll get my brother to chew me out. For the record, we do have a communal snack bin, but she won't touch the snacks in there. 4. She took my gift card stash from my shelf in the kitchen and spent nearly $75 on random BS because she claimed she wants to make the room more comfortable for Liam Jr. I use those gift cards when I go shopping or as presents at sudden events. She knows this and still took 6 to 8 gift cards out with her. It's been non-stop for the last 3 weeks and I'm so freaking done with her. She's taken my hair ties, my shirts from the laundry, my sleep bonnets, and my lipstick. She even took a bottle of my apple cider gummies, which I know she doesn't like because she's tried them before. Wow. I feel like she's doing it just to spite me or to assert herself, but I'm seriously considering kicking her out. Yeah, exactly what I was going to say. This just feels like it's just to spite you right now, OP. No other reason. Now, we do have a couple of edits and updates on this one. Firstly, OP just wants to clarify that Jessica used her shampoo on herself, not on Liam Jr., because the smell was, I guess, irritating him. Also, I'm just going to state that the only reason I'm letting these two stay is because of Liam Jr. My brother can't afford housing close to his job, and if I kick him out, Liam Jr.'s housing would be up in the air. His commute is already 45 to 60 minutes each way, and none of our relatives who are willing to let him stay live any closer. Secondly, please do not insult my wife in the comments. She was recently promoted and isn't home often, but I assure you she sticks up for me when she's home. She has told me that she's willing to let them stay for Liam Jr., but she has shown that she's upset by Jessica stealing. I'm sorry I didn't say that before. Alright, edit 3/small updates. I've been reading through the comments during my work break and I keep seeing the same things being tossed around. Even the comments that were harsh with it are right. Jessica stomped on both mine and my wife's boundaries, using her son as a cover, and I am being spineless by letting her stay. I also have to accept that Liam Jr. is not my responsibility. As much as I love him, I can't let his mum use him against me. I talked with my wife on her phone today, and we've decided that we're telling them to start seeking alternative housing. We're also going to get a proper eviction drafted up. We've decided they have until Friday the 17th at the absolute latest. Now, this was posted on the 11th of February, so that's just 6 days from the time of posting. I will update after we've talked. Thank you all for knocking some sense into me. Yeah, you know what? I completely agree with the comments. It's tough, but Liam Jr. isn't your responsibility, and you have to respect yourself and your wife. Now, for the next juicy update. We had the talk with them about an hour ago, and it went bad fast. My brother was screaming, Jessica was screaming, Liam Jr. was crying because of all the noise, and somehow that's my fault. They yelled for a good 40 minutes about how they had nowhere else to go and they won't be able to stay together if I kick them out. It was hard for me, but my wife helped me with my stress. Some highlights from Jessica's rant include: "You can't have a baby. You'll never know how stressed I am. You didn't lose anything super expensive. Why are you acting like this?" And my personal favourite: "If you kick us out, you'll never see me or my son again." Along with a healthy bit of cursing. I told them that my wife and I's decision was final, and Jessica locked herself in her room with Liam Jr. My brother tried to apologise, saying that he was just stressed from work and his new baby, and Jessica putting pressure on him. But my wife cut him off and told him to imagine how stressed I'd been when my things went missing. He just kind of slumped in his seat, then went and joined Jessica in the room after I denied his pleas to stay again. I heard them arguing for a bit, but only for around 15 minutes. I got a text from Jessica's mother asking what was happening, but it wasn't hostile, so I don't think she has the full story. I'm debating telling her, since she's technically not involved yet. I've gotten 3 or 4 similar messages from numbers I don't recognize, so I think Jessica may have told people my number or posted something. I'll update again if anything else serious happens. But here we go. Immediately we do get this update. Jessica and Liam woke me and my wife up by clambering around about 20-ish minutes ago. They didn't say much while they packed up their stuff, but Jessica did say, "I hope you're happy now. Don't expect to see Liam Jr. anytime soon." Wow, so I guess they did actually leave. I didn't feel good when they left. I felt awful. My stomach was in knots and my chest was burning. I should feel happy, but I don't. All I can do is worry. I just feel useless. I feel like a useless wife, like a useless aunt and sister. I was trying to help and now I might not see my nephew again. I went out of my way and now it feels like I'm being punished. I'm pretty sure they'll try something again, but it's not my concern anymore. My brother left his spare key in the kitchen, but I'm still changing the locks. Jessica texted me that Liam is going to be staying in a motel near his job till they figure something else out. And she is going to be stuck with her mother. Her mother lives 4 hours away, for reference. You were all right that I needed to have them gone, but I wish I didn't feel so dang bad. My wife has been comforting me as best as she can, and I appreciate her so much. She's been so supportive, and I'm lucky to have her. Thank you all for listening, commenting, etc. It was the extra push I needed to knock my stupid head on straight. Now you might be thinking that's the end of it, but no, we have another update. I was contacted by Jessica's mother, who apologized for her daughter and offered to pay me the value of the item stolen if I let her and Liam Jr. move back in. Oh, it was all going so well until that last bit. I told her no, and she was surprisingly kind and accepting of this. The call was very short, but I can only assume Jessica told her mother some short or watered down version of what actually happened. I think though that things are settling down now. I also got a text from my brother, but it only said that he was safe at the motel. And now, the final update as it stands at the time of recording is this. Me and my wife have decided to send my brother a bill for the items Jessica stole. The exact number is a bit touch and go as we don't know the value of some items. We've added the items we're certain she took that can have a concrete price attached to them. We're going to send it tomorrow and I'll update you on what happens. Okay, and there we go. That is the first story of this episode. I've got to say that I do think you guys made the right decision. I'm not sure if the last bit is a little bit too petty or not. Like, don't go overboard is all I'd say. They're gone now. Like, they've stolen stuff. It's annoying, but it's happened. Don't, like, you know, count up every penny or cent or whatever and give them a fully itemized bill. And I know a lot of you in the comments right now are probably disagreeing with me, and I understand that. I just think there's no need to be completely petty. Yes, you deserve the money, the majority of the money from the stuff that she stole, and yes, you should get that back. And to be fair, in a way, it was nice that her mum offered, even though it did come with that clause that you have to let them back into your home. But Don't go through each individual item that she might have stolen. You're not entirely sure what the value is. But the main things, yeah, send her a bill for that. But not every little tiny thing. Now, I will say, sadly, that this was posted 26 days ago, right? And as of today, the time of recording, 8th of March, you know, we haven't had anything. Now, this was posted on a throwaway account, so probably not this user's main, but hopefully they come back on at some point. I'll look out for it, guys, don't worry. And they let us know exactly what happened, how much they ended up billing their sister for. If Jessica ever paid back the money, I kind of don't think she's going to be honest. So that's kind of why I'm saying that the invoice, the bill doesn't really matter that much anyway. But yeah, we need to finish the story. I want to know what happens after that. I guess the point I'm making with the bill is just, is it worth the time to go through everything to make a bill that you know is not going to be paid anyway? Let's be honest, 99% she's not going to pay you back, given everything in the first place and the fact that she stole from you in the first place. Stealing from your own sister is mental. That's what I'm thinking. It's probably best just moving on from this now, forgetting about it, having the knowledge that you made the right decision, because I think objectively you did, even though you felt bad when they left. I think you did do the right thing. And yeah, as I said, just moving on with your life. Anyway, let me know if you disagree with me down below in the comments. I'm sure a lot of you will. But with that being said, let's move on to story 2. Entitled mother-in-law can't believe she might need to pay for her own housing. I just want to vent. I've been with my husband for about 15 years, and we were very low contact with his family for most of it because he couldn't stand them. I probably only met his mum 3 to 4 times, even though we lived in the same city. Well, 2 years ago, we get a call from Adult Protective Services. She was in the hospital after calling 911, and when they'd gone to get her, the apartment she shared with her daughter, who was also an entitled POS, that's a whole other story, was in such bad condition that they didn't want to release her back there. I'm sure they were happy to find someone else to take her, so we almost didn't even question whether there were other options, and we agreed to take her. We moved her in. It's been a nightmare. She is very entitled and narcissistic. She doesn't have much income because she hardly ever worked, so it's pretty measly social security. She spends about half her monthly income on cigarettes. We so love smelling it all the time. She does smoke outside, luckily. When we first got her and she was pretty frail and it was winter, we let her smoke in the garage, which was a huge mistake and turned into a giant tantrum when we finally put a stop to it. Luckily for her, she gets Medicare fully paid for by the state and gets some food stamps, but we don't charge her anything. She is a total slob. She's probably taken 5 to 6 showers in 2 years. Oh my gosh. And we really resent having her here now. She never cleans after herself, makes noise constantly, and frequently acts like a child and throws tantrums. For instance, she ran out of a chocolate muffin she likes, but still had cake and other snacks. She huffed and slammed the pantry and said, "I guess I'll just have to go without, as usual." We make sure she gets all her meds, gets food even if her food stamps run out, and drive her to all medical appointments. Some are 90 miles away and take 4 hours. But yeah, she goes without. I wish we'd tried to find an alternative earlier, but we are finally trying. Today I took her to meet with a social worker about Section 8 housing. She made it off the waiting list, and we're waiting to see how much she might get and whether we can find her a studio or something. The lady explained that she would have to pay 30 or 40% of her income towards the rent. My mother-in-law started complaining immediately how they were going to take all her money. I'm just sitting here like, female dog, you live in my house for free. Why shouldn't you have to pay something towards your own basic needs, such as housing? What the frick? Yeah, I mean, you've done the right thing. Again, like the first story, maybe it's a little bit less tough this time because it's not a child or a young baby that you're dealing with. It's actually an old person who is just a terrible narcissist. But still, you've done the right thing. You've done well, by the way, to have a look into Section 8 housing. Not that I know anything about that, but I'm English. And yeah, it looks like you're on the right path to her moving out. Why is she complaining? I mean, come on. Does she not like look in the mirror sometimes when she wakes up? Or maybe after having one of her, I was going to say quarterly showers. It's not even quarterly. It's every like 4 months. So ridiculous. But every 4 to 5 months, if it's 5 to 6 times every 2 years. Ridiculous. But does she not look in the mirror and think, what am I actually doing here? Leeching off my children and just not actually contributing anything to my own life? Do I try and sort it out? Well, no. She's entitled. Simple as that. Okay, now for our last, but by no means least, entitled parent story of this episode. I'm taking my mum to court. My mother has finally pushed me too far. I, a 34-year-old woman, cut contact with her back in 2021. She's always favored my son, and he became her golden child, so she started trying to use the school to see him without mine or his father's permission after I cut her out of our lives. We quickly put a stop to it by speaking with the school, and my son's father sent her a lengthy text telling her to never manipulate the school system to get to our son again, or we'd be taking legal action. And he let her know that we'd spoken to the school about this and they were very aware of our feelings. She was mostly quiet for a while after that, but I caught her following me once and I evaded her. She even traveled to another state where my son's father's family vacations almost every year during Christmas. Luckily, my son happened to not be there that year. Well, recently she started secretly volunteering at my son's elementary school. He's 10 years old, by the way. She lives over an hour away and didn't tell the school she had any familial connections there, since she knows that we'd spoken to the school about her antics a while back. We assume that she lied about her address to get approved since she lives so far away. Anyway, she somehow snuck out of the classroom she was volunteering in and asked another child to get my son out of the cafeteria and spent 15 minutes crying to him, telling him how unfair I've been and that she's never done anything wrong, that she has years of presents for him and he needs to come over to her house so he can have them. Worst of all, she told him not to tell anyone that she spoke with him or that he saw her. I felt like my mum was slowly calculating a way to eventually take him from the school. Now, my son's father and I aren't together, but we immediately banded together at this moment and spoke to the school vice principal the next day, and we decided to file an injunction. The temporary injunction was approved within an hour of filing. I was immediately in tears. I was so relieved. Our hearing is coming up, and the closer it gets, the more I find myself questioning what I'm doing. I know that I'm doing the right thing, but this situation just sucks. No one should have to protect themselves or their children from their own parent or grandparent. It's such an awful feeling. I wish she would have just respected our boundaries, but she's clearly incapable of that. I tried so hard to make her understand my boundaries before I cut contact with her. Her entitlement to my son was disgusting. She demanded seeing him, talking to him, and got very nasty and angry with me if I didn't oblige or if I had other plans and couldn't fit her in. She would constantly slip and call him her son. I guess I'm triggered and back to childhood me, feeling helpless and scared. I feel bad that I've had to go this far. I feel terrible that she's been served. I know I shouldn't feel bad because she's probably more embarrassed and worried about how this makes her look more than anything. It's probably a long shot, but have any of you guys experienced anything like this? I've never been to court. Even when my son's father and I divorced, we were able to settle on our own. I've got no idea what to expect, and I'm scared. I don't want to see her. I don't want to hear her lie in court or cry and manipulate, but I know it's coming. This situation is heartbreaking. Well, there we go. I think I've saved the most entitled person of this entire episode for last, but with good reason, because there's a beautiful update coming that I'm going to get into in just about 12 seconds, count them down, and I think it just shows the beauty of Reddit and what an amazing place it really is. Just full of wholesome people. Has that been 12 seconds? I'm going to say yes.
How did he do that?
Edit. I'm trying my best to respond to each one of you, but I just have to say thank you all so much for sharing your stories, for guiding me, for giving me pointers, for helping me prepare, for keeping me grounded and rooting for us. I didn't expect to receive so much amazing advice, and I'm crying tears of pure gratitude for each and every one of you. You guys might be strangers, but I love each of you from the bottom of my heart. Just know that you've all played a major role in possibly saving my son's life, maybe even my own. Once I have an update, I will edit this post again and let you guys know how it went as quickly as I can. There we go. The beauty of Reddit and the community that it brings right there in one paragraph. Lovely stuff. And yeah, I mean, you might think that's a little bit dramatic, a little bit of hyperbole there, but realistically, I mean, she is literally stalking your son. What else could she do? She could easily abduct him. I think she's shown that potential. So, I mean, yeah, it's not really an exaggeration, is it? People of Reddit who have given this user, you know, real support and real tips and advice and maybe pushed her into getting this injunction in the first place or helping her deal with go to court, genuinely could have saved / could be in the process of saving her and her son's life. My father demands an apology after 10 years of no contact. When I was 11 years old, my parents divorced. My father cheated a lot, and my mother forgave him every time because she wanted to keep the family together. But then when I was 11, my father cheated again and ran off with this woman. What followed was a huge divorce with a lot of fighting and arguing. The only thing my father didn't want was us as children. It was decided that I had to go to my father at the weekends. Because where I live, divorces go through the courts, and they think it's important that children continue to see both their parents. During these weekends, I was used more as a kind of Cinderella by my father and his girlfriend, and I was systematically abused mentally and physically. Every time I made a mistake in their eyes, didn't do something the way they wanted, didn't get things done on time because I had a lot to do, I was beaten with objects or just by hand. My father's favourite thing was his belt, and my stepmother liked to use an electric fly swatter, which gives off electric shocks when you turn it on so that you can kill the fly without crushing it, so to speak. If you hold it against your skin with the metal part, you'll get a pretty hard electric shock. To this day, I'm terrified of electric fly swatters, even though where I live, they are very common household things. I managed to hide the abuse for years by wearing baggy clothes with long sleeves, whether it was summer or winter. Because of this, I quickly became the weird kid at school and had no friends. The abuse had enormous mental consequences, but I wanted to persevere because I was afraid that if I stopped coming on weekends, my father's girlfriend would work out her anger on my little sister. She was only 5 when my parents broke up. I withdrew more and more to my room when I was with my mother so that I didn't have to talk to her. My mother is a sweetheart. She's really sweet and friendly and only wanted the best for me. She thought I was having trouble with the divorce and that I was starting to go through puberty. She regularly suggested that I go to a therapist, but I always didn't want to because I wanted to protect my sister. When I was 16, my gym teacher found out about the bruises because I suffered an injury during sports class and she had to look at my legs. As a result, child protection was immediately called to see that I was covered in them. My mother was so shocked that she kept me and my sister at home from that moment on. The judge decided that the contact arrangements were terminated and that we as children no longer had to visit my father. My father has always blamed me for the fact that he no longer sees his children. He called me a bad daughter and said that I should never have told anyone what happened in our home. He felt that it was no one's business and that it was good parenting, that it would make me hard and grow up to be a strong woman who could serve her husband in this way, that if I behaved better and did what I was told, I wouldn't have to be beaten. 10 years have passed since then. Because of what happened and the fact that we lived in a small village, everyone knows what occurred and what he and his now wife did to me. I moved far away from them and cut off all contact. I went to therapy to learn to deal with everything. I have a very sweet partner who supports me and also helps me to overcome my fears that I developed because of my father. I regularly have panic attacks at home and I'm afraid of being home alone. We bought a video doorbell so I can see who is at the door without having to go to it because I'm afraid that he'll find out my address and come to see me. He's already tried to find out my address a few times through my sister since she has been in contact with him again for a few years. Her reasoning was that they've not done anything to her and they were always kind to her, so she sees no reason not to visit regularly. That is interesting. Recently, I received a letter from my father through my sister in which he demanded that I apologize for my behavior and that because of me, the entire village thinks he is a disgrace. Yeah, I wonder why. In the letter, he said that he is getting older and his hearing and vision are getting worse. He demands that I apologize to him and that I introduce him to my partner, who really doesn't want that because he knows my entire history. He thinks he's been a good father and that being raised by my mother has made me soft and that I am now a bad woman because I'm pursuing a career outside the home in biology. My sister tells me that I should just say sorry and that he will really leave me alone afterwards. He really just wants to hear that he was a good father and that I regret talking to people 10 years ago when they saw my bruises. But I really don't want to. But my sister and father's family keep pestering me to say that I should just do it so that he can close it off and the village will no longer find him a shame. I really don't want to, and I haven't slept at night because of it. I don't know what to do anymore, and my partner tries to keep me calm so I don't have to think about it anymore because it gives me panic attacks. But my father and his family keep insisting and nagging me to do it by sending me messages on social media and calling or WhatsApping me. I keep blocking them, but they create new throwaway accounts to reach me or give letters and messages to my sister so that she can give them to me. I didn't tell my mother about this because she already feels very guilty that she didn't notice the abuse for all those years. So, what do you think? Should I just apologize to get it over with? Absolutely not. Why would you ever apologize? I mean, this is such a sad story. You can't ever even think about apologizing. And to be honest, I think it's very tragic that OP is even considering it, and it shows to me that the level of abuse that he suffered throughout his entire life. I mean, we know what physical effects it had, but mentally, the fact that you're in this situation and you're still even considering apologizing to your dad just shows the torture, the mental torture that you must have gone through and the impact it still has on you today. Like, if I put myself in that situation, obviously, you know, objectively, and I haven't had all the abuse that you've suffered for all those years, I just say, you know, straight off the bat, no. Why would I ever apologize? Obviously, he has to apologize to me. And even then, there's nothing he can even possibly say to excuse what he did for all those years. But because you're in this situation and you've had to deal with this for so long and it's clearly had such an effect on you, you're considering apologizing. I don't know. The worst person in all of this, by the way, I mean, she's not the worst person. Obviously, your dad and stepmom are. But a close second/third, your sister. What is she doing? Maybe she just doesn't understand. Maybe she was too young. But I don't know. I feel like she should be listening to you and just hearing what you did to help her all those years ago. And surely, like, if she hears about your experiences with her own dad and stepmom, she would have to side with you. But no, she's doing the opposite. I don't know. Maybe it's because she was too young to remember. Maybe it's because your dad and stepmom are extremely manipulative. Maybe it's because she is a bad person. Maybe it's a combination of all three. I'm not sure. I just feel like you've been completely left on your own here, OP, and it's a good thing that your mum is as sweet as she is. But my word, you know, 3 really bad people here. Now for our next entitled parent story. You called CPS because a toddler was running around naked. I was visiting with a very good friend of mine this weekend after a mutual friend's birthday party. We'd all gone, but it wasn't really a place conducive to quiet enjoyment of a friend's company. There was lots of noise and lights and sugary birthday goodies that everyone partook in, including my friend's 2 sons. Now, one of them isn't 1 yet, and the other is balls deep into the terrible 2s. The answer for everything is no, even when the answer was meant to be yes. It's hilarious, mostly because I can go home. My friend and his wife, they're tired, understandably so. So we were sitting in front of the TV and minding the boys, while my buddy's wife wanted some time not spent in the immediate vicinity of her offspring. Which, honestly, fair. She got drove off in her car and went I know not where, and we divided the labour equally. My friend had the kid who couldn't walk yet, and they were curled up on the couch. I think the intent was for a quiet nap. Me, well, I was stuck with the 2-year-old, and we had beef. At one point in the birthday party, I was playing skee ball at an arcade and offered my last ball to the 2-year-old. He wound up like he was on a baseball mound, and I wound up having to go, no, 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 and intervene. He's yet to forgive me for this transgression. So, my charge for a little bit decided watching Bluey was for suckers, and he was going in search of adventure. And I was following him around, because that's what you do when someone places the welfare of their child in your hands. The whole time, he's sulking and glaring at me every time he realizes I'm still behind him. It was so hard not to laugh because it was so overblown and dramatic. So we're in the boys' room, and the kid I'm watching is currently trying to cram his little body under his bed and shouting about wanting mama. Tough luck, kid. Mama's taking a break. You're stuck with me. And then there's a knock at the door. It's a caseworker from CPS and a police officer. I didn't realize this at the time, as I was trying to make sure the kid's head wouldn't actually get stuck under the bed. I'd never live it down. My buddy answers the door and is rather alarmed to see the pair waiting there. Then they came in, and my buddy shouted for me to come back to the living room with the kid. So I scoop up my charge, and he starts squirming and squawking because he wanted to be under the bed, and clearly this is not under the bed. Matter of fact, this is the opposite, and he promptly shuts up. Because strangers. The caseworker goes on to explain that they've gotten reports about toddlers being left outside in the snow with only a diaper on, being left naked to run around the house, bruises on the kids, etc, etc. For the uninitiated, most toddlers cannot stand wearing clothes. They want out of them immediately. Even the hint of a chance at ditching the clothing, and they'll go for it. The cop looks around for a moment, says something to the CPS worker, and then leaves. I sit with a 2-year-old, who was clothed by the way, and my buddy does all of the talking. I can tell that he is furious, but I didn't really know why at the time. The caseworker wanders around the house a little bit, takes a look at both kids, then shrugs and says he can't see any evidence behind the report, but that everyone has to be investigated. They'll be in touch, but it won't be a home visit unless new evidence or reports come to light. After the caseworker leaves, my buddy hands me the not quite 1-year-old, takes out his phone and goes into the basement, and promptly starts screaming at the top of his lungs into the phone. The 1-year-old just went back to napping, and the 2-year-old showed some survival instincts. He just looked at me and said, "Daddy mad," and watched TV with me and his brother. My friend's mother had some sort of mental illness flare up on her out of nowhere. I don't really know the details because it's not my business, but what little I did hear about was horrific enough. Evidently, on Grandma's last visit, the 2-year-old managed to escape the clutches of bath time and wound up making a beeline straight out the open front door into the snow. He realised this was a poor life choice seconds after escaping, mostly from face planting into snow after tripping, and struggled not at all to be brought back in for bath time. Why was the door open? Grandma's new boyfriend was rather drunk and attempting to bring in a pile of Christmas gifts that were arriving in late January. He fell down the stairs when he tried opening the door, so they just propped the door open to allow easier offloading. In a nutshell, stuff happens. Kids have minds of their own and do their own thing. He was never in any actual danger, just a 2-year-old doing 2-year-old things. The fact that Grandma twisted the event in such a fashion honestly confuses me, especially since the root cause of the kid getting out at all wasn't even my friend's fault. The really fed up part about the report though, the reason there was a cop there was because Grandma told CPS that her son was an alcoholic with a mean streak when he was drunk, and that he kept a gun at the door. He does keep a gun by the door, to be fair. It's a double-barrel shotgun and a small safe with a keypad because he lives in the boonies and it's not unusual to see things like bears. To the best of my knowledge, the only time the gun is fired is at range, so my buddy and his wife can use the weapon competently if the need should arise. Her own son, though. Now, some parents can be difficult, all right? I hold my hands up. Some grandparents can be difficult, some parents can be difficult, and, you know, not always is it a good idea to have your parent look after your child. I do feel like this is one of those occasions where maybe you don't let your mum look after your kid anymore. I do, though, have to say that there's levels to this game. Calling CPS on your own son, that is mad. I don't really understand even why she did that. Okay, sorry, she didn't call CPS, someone else did. But then, sorry, the grandma saying that her own son was an alcoholic with a mean streak is absolutely mental. That's the reason why the cop was there, of course. I don't know, like, it's bad enough that someone calls CPS. I think, yeah, it happens, you could say, but also it's not great. I mean, a 2-year-old being able to run outside on their own, it's very dangerous, as we saw with a story not long ago. You know, a kid abandoned on their own outside can have serious repercussions. But then, yeah, doubling down and saying, oh, actually, no, it's because of my son who's an alcoholic. Mad. And look, I get it. She has a mental illness. Does that excuse this? Does that allow for this? I would say no. Obviously, you need more context there. But yeah, I think the easiest thing to do is just, you know, maybe you don't cut her off, but just don't let her ever look after your kid. Now for our final entitled parent story of this episode. My bio mum's husband offered to adopt me. I'm already adopted. I am 18, non-binary. I don't remember the exact ages of my bio mum and her husband, but they're in their late 40s. I'll call them Claire and Daniel. For some background, Claire had me and my brother while she was an addict and had a lot of untreated issues. Bipolar, BPD, schizophrenia, etc. I won't go into a lot of detail because it's very heavy, but long story short, she married a bad man. And because of his and her actions, she lost custody of us when we were 5, and we eventually got adopted when we were 8. She divorced that man and is now married to Daniel. Now on to the story. Claire at the time had gotten diagnosed with a terminal illness, so I had agreed to fly out there to visit her. I'd never gotten super close with Daniel, but we were relatively friendly. At first, the visit was okay, everyone was acting normally. But then things kind of started to go downhill. Claire asked if I would consider moving out there for the time she had left, and I said I would consider it. She seemed to be happy with that answer at first, along with Daniel, but then it started going downhill. They started acting like I was definitely moving in and started trying to make all of these decisions before I'd even decided, like wanting to go to the social security office to see if I still qualified for insurance, etc. It was hard for me to push back on it and set boundaries because I'm autistic and communication is hard, so I just kind of brushed it off. One night, me and Claire were having a deep conversation and Daniel joined in, which led to him offering to adopt me. I explained that I was already adopted and that I did not want to be adopted again, and he seemed to drop the issue. Over the next few days though, he started getting more authoritative, I guess, Whenever I talked about something, he would correct me, even if he was obviously wrong. It even got to the point when I was trying to bond with him and talk to him about my trans experience, he straight up said that I should try to be comfortable being a woman and that he didn't want me to get gender-affirming surgery, that I needed to fully experience being a woman before I decided. I deflected from the topic but felt very uncomfortable. When I flew home and told my mum everything, she texted Claire saying that she basically needed to take a chill pill and that Daniel needed to stop inserting himself in our lives like he was a parent. The last thing I heard about the situation is that when my brother visited later, Daniel told him something basically to the effect that I was influenced easily and that's why I'm non-binary. I haven't talked to him since besides saying hi when I'm on the phone with Claire. I mean, the strange thing is that your bio mum's husband doesn't already know that you're adopted. Unless he does know and he just wants to like re-adopt you or cancel the adoption that has already happened and take over. You know, like when a manager gets sacked, is he the new manager? Is he the caretaker manager? Is that what he wants to be? I think once again, it's been the case with multiple stories here. You just need to stay away from these entitled parents. That really is like the key thing. That is the common denominator throughout every entitled parent story ever, realistically. Just stay away from them. But yeah, I think it's much harder when they are your own family. I mean, we also have to, of course, talk about the fact that he's saying, oh yeah, don't transition, man. Well, not man, but you know what I mean. Don't transition. You need to experience what it's like to be a woman. What is that? I mean, what is that? At what age do you have full experience of being a woman? That's my question. And again, it makes me think of an episode the other day where somebody said, you're not a lesbian, you just haven't had the right D yet. It's along those sort of lines. It's crazy. Now, someone's actually commented down below that they have a creepy feeling it's not going to be adoption, but actually a relationship, especially with him not wanting you to transition. Now, I don't know about that, but then they've also said, do you have an uncanny resemblance to your bio mum? So I guess this person is saying once your bio mum passes away, he might want to get with you and replace her with someone that has similar DNA and looks similar. If that's the case, that is mental. I wouldn't suggest that myself, but apparently actually just looking, OP has said that in the past they've talked about their sex life to me, talked about their relationship, and when he was talking about wanting me to have the full experience of a woman, he was talking about the topic no one should be talking about with their wife's kid that they barely know. Okay, that's just, yeah, really, really creepy. I've had enough. My daughter's father wants to use her as therapy for his wife. I, a 33-year-old woman, am going to preface this by saying my 6-year-old daughter's father, who is 37, I'm going to call him Jeff, has never been my romantic partner. We had a one-night stand. I don't like people calling him my ex, since it makes it seem we had some kind of emotional attachment. He was never involved after I told him I was pregnant and actually wanted me to terminate the pregnancy. But I decided to raise my child alone since I have enough money to raise her without child support. For the whole pregnancy and the first 4 years, Jeff was not in the picture. On my mother's recommendation, I did send him pictures and invited him to special events, but he always replied that he had no interest in my daughter. 2 years ago, he reappeared and began demanding parental rights. When I didn't do what he wanted, he sued and was told no, he was not getting parental rights. He was given the offer to pay child support and then we can revisit giving him actual rights, but he's refused. He has the money, much more than me, but he refuses. I still offered to let him see my daughter in a casual manner, no child support needed, with the agreement that anything legal, medical, or educational would not involve him. He pushed the boundaries and we had a fallout. After that, we didn't hear from him for almost 6 weeks before he called to meet for Christmas. After much discussion, I agreed to bring my daughter over on the condition my daughter's godparents could come. Thus, we went over for Christmas dinner. I also then found out that Jeff is married and had never told his family he had a child. It was great to be judged by a bunch of strangers. It was uncomfortable the whole time. I'm going to use fake names, but let's say my daughter's name is Katie. His wife kept calling my daughter Gabrielle. Not the actual name she used, but it was that different to my daughter's name. The wife was also very physical, trying to pick up my daughter and parent her. I would block her or tell her to please let me deal with my child. The whole time she pretty much ignored me, but Katie didn't seem nervous, so I decided to just bide my time. I hit my limit though when my daughter said she needed the bathroom, and this stranger went, "Oh, Gabby, you need potty? Let mummy change you." My daughter hasn't worn diapers in a while now, and she's more than capable of going alone to the bathroom. I immediately told her to stay away from my daughter and that we were leaving. The woman started wailing that I was kidnapping her baby girl and tried to lunge at me. Her in-laws got in the middle and held her, consoling her, saying that we weren't leaving and for her to calm down, like she was the victim. At that point, I just glared at Jeff and told him he better explain or I'd be calling the police. He asked to speak to me in private in another room and that I could just leave my daughter with his parents. No way that was ever happening. Katie's godparents took her with them, despite the wife having a full meltdown. Jeff and I spoke outside, and he explained that he and his wife recently lost a daughter. I'm not going to give specific details on that, all I'll say it was sudden and nobody's fault. And, as I can only imagine, it had caused some psychological issues to his wife. Apparently, he had the brilliant idea that having Katie pass as their lost child would help his wife, without telling me. And that is why he wanted visitation and parental rights. He pleaded for me to leave my daughter with him for a little bit. I asked him what his plan was when his wife heals. His response was disgusting. Well, I'll just send Katie back with you and it will be just like before. I told him he was insane if he thought I would let him use my daughter like that. What his wife needs is therapy with a professional, not feeding her delusions, and I would not let that woman within miles from my daughter. He told me I was being cruel and didn't know the pain of losing a child. I agreed with him, but reminded Jeff that my priority is not his family, it's my child. What he and his family do to work through their grief has nothing to do with us. I also told him to call his lawyer because I'm making sure he never has contact with my child. So that's what I'm bracing for. He's been blasting my phone since Christmas, but I can easily ignore him. My daughter and I are doing a small travel vacation. Now OP continues to post this. This isn't an update, just something I feel needs to be said. My daughter is set for life monetarily. She has a trust and I make really good money in my position. If she was 18 right now, I could put her through college without a loan. She doesn't need child support for quality of life. If I could get child support and never worry about her father trying something, I'd be suing him in a heartbeat. But after talking to a lawyer and realizing the risk, I've taken the decision that child support or possible inheritance is not worth my child's safety. Safety is always first. And now another edition from OP posted on the 6th of January 2024. Hey everyone, happy New Year's. This isn't so much a real update as just letting people know that we are home and safe. My daughter is spending the rest of her vacation with her godparents on another trip while I work on things. Just a reminder, this was originally posted on r/EntitledParents on the 31st of December at 8:52 p.m. Moving might be something I'll be looking into, though that is a long-term plan considering all it takes. I won't share too many details on what my lawyer is going to be doing, but we're absolutely going to push for a restraining order. I might not post for some time, at least not until things settle. I do appreciate all the support and good advice. I'm taking a lot of it into account as I plan how to move forward. Okay, off the rip, I've just got to say this is just a crazy start to this story. I think, from your exes, I know you don't like calling him exes, but I'm going to refer to him as ex. I'll call him Jeff. How about that? From Jeff's perspective, he is the one I think that's most in the wrong here because I can kind of understand from his girlfriend or his wife now's point of view that she is probably just in a terrible, terrible spot. I mean, it's a horrible thing to happen. I mean, I'm sure he is as well, to be fair. But for her in particular, I think it's a horrible thing to happen. And she's probably looking for any sort of thing that can make her feel better. Obviously, he should be leading her towards therapy. And she also is partly to blame, of course, as well, because she shouldn't just be trying to, in effect, steal someone else's kid. It's very weird. But I do think that Jeff is the one that should be saying, no, look, we can't just take my daughter, who I've had no part in her life, by the way, but yeah, use her for a bit to make you feel better and then send her back to her mum. No, go to therapy. Obviously, that's what you got to do. But yeah, clearly they're not doing this. However, there are 2 more updates to come, 2 more full posts. So let's get into the second one. Hey everyone, I decided to post a last update since I will be going full silent for a long period. This was posted on January the 11th, 2024. For those that didn't know, I'm right now dealing with my daughter's father and his delusion. He wants to use my daughter as a therapy doll for his wife that recently lost a child. A lot of people were worried for my daughter and me, and I truly appreciate it. We're both safe. She's currently having a great vacation with her godparents, and I'm currently making my own arrangements to move on. My lawyer is working hard on keeping everything in order. I know a cease and desist was his first action, and we're going for no contact. He says we have a solid case, and hopefully this will be resolved relatively fast. And by that, I mean a year or 2. Now, we did get a temporary restraining order. It's only until our first court date, but after, it could be extended. I haven't had direct contact with Jeff. He lawyered up too and tried to send a threat to take full custody. My lawyer laughed at it, since his reasoning was parental alienation. Except I have proof that I tried for years to have him involved. Apparently, turning in a few emails showing my attempts was enough to get them to change parental alienation to a different reasoning. My lawyer is not worried, in all honesty. For now, I've decided, after much thinking, that moving is going to be necessary. It won't be something I can do on a whim, but I'll be looking into new houses within the month to hopefully move sometime this year. School will remain the same, but we'll be speaking to the admin to make sure only certain people can pick her up. And part of that decision has been to hire a private driver. He's somebody I absolutely trust and has worked for relatives in the past, so I'm very comfortable with the idea, and so is my daughter. Now, I just have to make sure they don't go for fast food every day after school. Things, in all honesty, are not that scary right now. I've got a good lawyer, good evidence, and my little girl is happy and healthy, so I'm just going to focus on working things little by little. Because of the legal proceedings, I don't think I'll be posting any updates anytime soon. And to those sending me PMs telling me I'm horrible for keeping my daughter from her father, or telling me I shouldn't have had her in the first place, please kindly speak to the void. I'm too busy. I mean, again, I think that after this, it's just even more disgusting and scary. It's good that you seem pretty chilled about this, but it must be terrifying being in this situation and thinking, legally, is there actually a chance that your ex, well, not ex, but Jeff could have some sort of visitation rights here, or try and get his nose in and with some form of good legal backing, actually be able to see your daughter for a period in a week. I mean, who knows? It must be very scary. Obviously, you sound like you have everything completely under control. You said good lawyer, good evidence, and your girl's happy, which is great. But still, the fear must be just overwhelming. Although, to be fair, I don't know. Comment down below. I think OP is handling this unbelievably. Just fair play to OP. What a great mother you seem to be. You're just handling this with so much calmness and just patience, but also just knowing what you need to do. It's very, very impressive when all this is going on around you. But yeah, there is actually one more final post just from a few days ago at the time of recording. So let's get into that and see how this concludes. But then on the 17th of February 2024, so a decent while later now, OP posted this. Hey, doing an unexpected update. My lawyer just called me to let me know that Jeff was arrested. I'm not aware what the charges are. Short of being a murder, I'll be realistic, he's probably going to be out as soon as his parents post bail. That said, I have to admit, a petty side of me is rather happy, since depending on the circumstances, it might help in my bid to get a permanent no contact order. My daughter is doing great, by the way. She's been making her list of new school gear she wants for March, when she goes back to school. I've also been talking to my job about a chance to work in another country. We'll see. Thank you everyone that has messaged me by PMs. You guys have great recommendations and I read them all. I couldn't keep up with all the messages, but the vast amount helped a lot. Okay, so OP lied. There you go. If anything happens directly on my own case, I'll post later on. For now, I have a few months before we go into court again. And now let's get into the final update of this story, posted just 8 days ago. I think now, with this final update, the title and thumbnail of this episode, well, the reasoning behind them will become very clear. My daughter's father sent a priest to harass me. I had no intentions to do a new post, but today absolutely took the cake. To those that don't know, my daughter, who is 6, was born from a one-night stand with Jeff. We were never romantically involved. It was a simple one-night stand, and we did use contraceptives, but they failed. It happens. A few months ago, Jeff went full psycho and tried to convince me to leave my daughter with him so she could serve as a replacement child for his wife, who recently lost their infant daughter. I refused, and right now we're in the middle of some legal issues. Okay, all caught up. Now, for today, I thankfully didn't deal with Jeff. Instead, he sent a priest to harass me at work. I'm going to be very blunt. I am completely detached from religion. I'm not an atheist, just don't really like the idea of the Catholic Church. That is the leading religion in my home country. Yeah, I respect it, and most of my family is Catholic, so I do have a detached respect for church officials. Today I was doing some paperwork when I got a call about a priest asking for me. I didn't have any meetings scheduled, and a lot of times we get visits from clergy asking for donations or participation in events, so I figured that was it. I told the secretary to let him in, and things at first seemed rather polite. shake hands, asking how things were, the usual chit chat. Then the priest began talking about how it had come to his attention that I was a single woman with a child and that apparently I lived a life of debauchery and hate. His words. I was taken aback and agreed that I was a single mother, but that I didn't see how I lived in debauchery and hate. The priest then went on about how he knew my daughter is prohibited from spending time with her father and that I'm constantly sleeping around with men instead of living a godly life. How he was worried and thought it would be best I considered giving my daughter a chance to live with a proper family rather than see me sell myself. Now, angry was of course an understatement. I did keep it civil because I'm simply at work and I'd no intentions of screaming to a religious man at my workplace. I simply told him that my daughter was fine with me, she lived a safe and happy life, my personal affairs were my own, and that I had no intentions of sending her to another household. I told him that if there was nothing else, he should probably leave, as I had other things to attend to. He then showed his hand, and that's how I know it was Jeff's doing. The priest told me he didn't think my daughter would be a happy child with me, but her father was well respected in his church, and he knew he would raise a proper Christian lady. At that, I laugh and simply say, no. I once again recommended he left, and if he didn't, I would be calling security. He left saying he would try to speak to me again when I'm not being hysterical. I told my secretary and our security not to let him into my office again, and I called my lawyer. I don't have audio, but we do have security feed from him walking into my office. Thank you again to everyone sending well wishes in my previous post. We're still working on that move, but school is back and she's loving it. We still have that temporary restraining order against Jeff and his wife, and school officials know it. So there we go. Yeah, that is where it gets absolutely mental. Sending a priest to your work to harass you and put the fear of God in you and make you just, I don't know, think, oh my gosh, no, my daughter's not going to grow up to be a great Christian, even though I'm not religious myself. Oh no, I must send her to the man in her life who has never been in her life, literally. Oh, that's right, her father. So weird. I want to know how this works now. Does Jeff pay the priest? Does he say, look mate, I really need a favour. I know we get on well, like, I love your prayers, I love your hymns, you're a great singer actually. Can you do me a little favour? Can you just go to my wife's work? By the way, not my wife, and never been in a relationship with her. Yeah, some random woman who happens to be my daughter's mother, and just tell her that she is horrible and not a good mum, despite the fact that in reality she actually really is. That'd be great. Also, what sort of priest would do that so bad? What's he saying as well about like selling yourself and not being a good mother and not living a godly life, all that rubbish? I mean, it just makes religion look terrible doing stuff like this. But yeah, I mean, surely this is just legally harassment and you have to file some sort of police report against the priest for one, and then also Jeff for setting this up in the first place. Absolutely insane end to this one. And I hope this is the end. But I mean, I don't know, this was, as I said, just posted 8 days ago. It might not be. I really hope it is, but I'll be keeping my eye on this account to see if there's anything else to come. I hope there isn't, and if there is, it's only positive, but you never know. Again though, once again, like, I've got to say, how are you able to maintain that level of coolness? I know you're in the office, you don't want to scream and shout, but still, imagine this happening to you. Put yourself in OP's position, guys. You get approached at work by a priest telling you that you're not a good mother and you need to give up your child. I know for sure that I am not just being calm and reasonable. I'm going livid. I don't care where I am. So once again, fair play, OP. You're clearly a much better person than me and an unbelievable parent. Wow. Really enraged, crazy mother tonight. Now she's going to give my social security number and address to scammers. My mother has been losing her mind for a while now. She has several internet boyfriends she met on Facebook, all of them famous men and all of them needing money. She has spent thousands in cash deposits, prepaid Visa gift cards, Bitcoin ATM transfers, bought plane tickets, sent them pictures of her Wells Fargo bank statements. You name a scam and she's fallen for it. I've seen the messages with my own eyes. She recently called my brother and admitted she was broke and told, not asked, told him that he needed to fix it. She received a fake $10,000 check from one of these people and deposited it into her bank account and started writing her own checks to pay her bills. All of these checks have now bounced. I'm trying to catch them and make them right so she doesn't get fraud charges on top of being broke. Her utilities were turned off this week. I fixed it. She was so far behind on her mortgage that they were going to serve her with foreclosure paperwork last Friday. My brother paid the amount due to stop that process. She literally has $100,000 plus in credit card debt and has been trying to save the money for a bankruptcy attorney. I told her I would front the retainer. This has all happened in only the last 8 days. We're $5,000 deep in stopping the bleeding, and who knows what is still coming. We made her sign power of attorney over to us on Monday as a contingency for our help. She also signed a petition for voluntary conservatorship that will have to go in front of a judge. She swore to us she was done talking to these men. I personally took her phone and deleted the apps she uses to talk to them and the hundreds of different numbers they have been using to text her from. I blocked everything I could. She swore again that she's cut all contact and would not have anything else to do with them. Last night, she accidentally texted my brother from one of the apps I positively know I deleted. So my brother and I decided that she clearly can't be trusted and doesn't need a phone with apps or internet capability. She's like a dang meth head, and we have to blow up the double wide that houses her meth lab. So I bought her a jitterbug flip phone, the only thing I could get my hands on, and activated today. I activated it, I charged it, and I preloaded it with all of the contacts I can think of that she'll need for the next few days. Doctors, friends, both of her children. I took it over to her house, grabbed her iPhone and put it in my purse. And then I pulled out the jitterbug and told her this was her new phone from right now. She flipped her wig. She demanded I give it back to her. I don't have the authority to take it away from her. She needs that phone. Then she freely admitted she's been texting at least one of the men, the leader of the pack. Of course, she re-downloaded those apps. She's in love with him, and the heart wants what it wants. I told her she'll just have to keep wanting. She's not getting her phone back. She moved to lock the door so I couldn't leave. I beat her to it and ran out to my car. I pulled off with her standing in the driveway, screaming at me. I stopped at the gas station just down from her house to sit for a second because my hands were shaking. Evidently, this gave her enough time to get past me because she beat me back to my house. My husband let her inside and made my daughter go back upstairs so she wasn't actively watching this go down. I get home and she meets me in my garage. I want my phone back, just over and over. I kept telling her no and that she needed to leave. She refused to leave without her phone. I said I'd call the police. My daughter is here and she's being erratic and she needs to leave. Finally, my husband convinced her we needed to go outside for this conversation so my daughter couldn't hear it. We go out on the front porch and this woman spit straight up venom at me for 15 solid minutes. I'm the greatest disappointment of her life. She wishes I was never born. She should have let my abusive ex-husband beat me to death instead of loaning me the retainer for my divorce attorney in 2017, because that is why she's broke. You name it, she said it. She even threatened to beat me senseless with her cane. I just kept telling her I was sorry she feels that way and I'm not giving it back, so she should leave. She finally said that she's going to make sure she gives my information to all these scammers I'm so worried about, my social security number and my address, so they can show up at my house and tell me how they really feel. And she is not responsible for whatever happens next. And then she finally left. I came inside and literally sobbed on the bathroom floor. I have been for a couple of hours now. What kind of mother tells their kid she wishes their abusive ex had succeeded in beating them to death? What kind of grandparent threatens to give out the address to the home that her grandkid lives in? I've long been suspecting some early onset dementia, and we literally had a neurologist appointment tomorrow after waiting 3 months for it. That's the thread I've been holding on to. This isn't my mother. This is the disease that's been eating her brain. She says she's not going now. I wonder if she'll still show up for the bankruptcy attorney appointment she has tomorrow that I'm supposed to be fronting. She was absolutely like an unhinged, raving addict. Just give it back for tonight and I'll give it to you in the morning. She told me she has one of his 176 numbers memorized and will just call him as soon as she gets home. She wasn't bluffing. She did add a new contact with his name, but I deleted it from the parental control app already tonight. She also said she hopes this new phone has long distance because she will stay up all night calling China so that my bill is high. I'm ready to just hand her back the dang phone and tell her to go jump. You won't get another penny from me, so don't call me or mine for another dang thing as long as you live. When these bad checks keep bouncing and they come after you with charges, I don't care. When your utilities get turned off again, sit there in the dark and use your love for this fake bar internet boyfriend to keep you alive. And when your house goes into foreclosure again, I will wave at you and your little shopping cart full of trash when I drive by you on the street. I'm just so done right now. So done. Oh god, there we go. That is just awful. Now, coming up, we have a part 2 to this, a continuation of this, where things somehow get even worse. But for now, I've just got to say, again, I don't ever really blame somebody for getting scammed. Yes, you could say they should know better, but realistically, it happens to everyone, and I know it's a bit mean to say, oh, come on, that was so obvious, even though it probably was, like in this situation. So I do feel like, you know, empathy and sympathy is the best way to go about these sort of things when they do happen. However, when the person that's been scammed has this sort of reaction, and is just completely like negligent to what's gone on, and cannot see that they're being scammed, despite it going on for so long and everyone around them saying, you're being an idiot now, you're letting this happen again and again and again. No, these people do not love you, they just want your money, and they're plunging you into a world of debt and darkness. Can you not see that? If they don't see that, then yeah, they've got themselves to blame at this point. It's ridiculous. And OP, I think you're doing your best here. You really are. I don't know really what else you can do apart from just call the police and the FBI, because if your mum is threatening to leak your social security and your address, that is endangering you. So, I mean, that is the only logical next step. Anyway, that was posted 2 months ago. And just 1 day ago, at the time of recording, we got this update. I mean, it's not really an update, it's more an addition. But yeah, posted on r/EntitledParents just 1 day ago. Mum got scammed again, and now I'm done. My 68-year-old mother is losing her mind and has been for a while now. We knew she'd been conversing with several people online for over a year, most of which claimed to be famous men and all of which needed money for various things. We'd been telling her since December that she was being scammed. We tried involving DHR and the agency who helps protect seniors, all falling on deaf ears. Courts won't do anything without a medical diagnosis, neurologist appointments take months, so we're just stuck trying to keep her from self-destructing until then. That is one thing that I failed to mention as well, actually, guys. If she does have a neurological disorder or disease, then I kind of take back what I've said, and she does need help. If she doesn't, then I 100% stick by what I said. But yeah, if she's not even willing to get a neurological appointment, then I don't know, it's tough. End of February, she finally admits she needs help. Okay, that is good. Actually, she called my brother and said she was broke and that he needed to fix her. But we'll say that was asking for help. Per the bank, her home was a few hours from going into foreclosure on the day we got the call from her, and her utilities were turned off the very next week. She has over $100,000 in credit card debt, most of it from sending these men pictures of every single credit card she has. She also gave them all of her bank account information and sent at least $30,000 in cash via Bitcoin ATMs or prepaid gift cards. I'm not sure I'll ever know exactly what she has spent on them, but I do know that she owes $7,000 in taxes this year from all the withdrawals she made to her retirement, which she freely admits she sent to these men. She also still swears every one of them are actually all the celebrities they claim to be, and still truly believes that one of them is the love of her life. My brother and I told her the only way we'd help is if she gave us power of attorney, which she did. We then caught up her house payments and reconnected the utilities. I've been going through her bills as I pay all of them and trying to help her budget, including finding her cheaper internet, TV and cell phone plans so she'll be able to pay her own bills going forward on her fixed income. She has been beyond nasty to me every step of the way, telling me what a disappointment I am and she wishes I was never born. There have been unalive threats, to which she laughed in my face and told the police she would never do anything that dramatic. She calls me almost daily and tells me she fell, only for myself or the ambulance to rush over and have her admit that she wasn't actually hurt, but was hoping a trip to the ER would get her pain meds. I took her phone, created a new Apple ID, and had it set so she couldn't text or call anyone not saved in her contacts, and she can't add people or numbers or apps without my approval. That was the only thing, short of changing her number, that I could do to stop her contact with these scammers. She adamantly refused to change the number because she's had that one for 30 plus years, but she's still been getting hundreds of texts from 6-digit numbers, I'm guessing because she responded to them in the past, so they were able to get around the block. I've told her 1,000 times not to even open them, delete them, or send them to junk. She had hip replacement surgery this past week. While in the hospital, she received a text telling her she won a free oxygen machine. Call this number to claim your prize. She texts me and tells me she needs to add this number to her phone because it's a home health medical equipment company and she wants to talk to them about Life Alert, so I add their number. She calls and they tell her she just needs to give them her bank account information to cover the shipping, and she gives it to them. Then she calls to crow about her winnings. I call the same number, and what do you know, I'm also an instant winner if I just give them my bank account information. Hit 0 to speak with a person, and now I've won a free year of DirecTV. Hit 0 again, and now I've won a free year of pest control from Terminix if I just enter my bank account information. So, a total scam that my mother has again fallen for while laying in her hospital bed recovering from surgery. Like the last 2 months didn't happen, like she's learned nothing from this whole experience. She doesn't even need an oxygen machine, but decided that since her parents had breathing issues at the end of their lives, and because it was free, this opportunity was too good to pass up in case she needs one later. She tells me just to call them back and cancel, because I'm sure the kind phone scammers will totally forget your bank account info if I just ask nicely. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, she's been showing signs of progressive dementia and is at moderately severe cognitive decline on the staging models. So I get it, this is the new normal for her. She no longer possesses the mental capacity to understand real from fake, and she will continue to fall for stuff like this as long as she is alive. And I can't do anything to stop it. I can just crawl along behind her and try to fix it while hoping she shows up to the neuro in May so I can get the courts to intervene. She'll always be a danger to herself and her own well-being, with the added bonus of being awful to me every step of the way. So, I've decided that I'm done trying to save her from herself. I'm opening another new bank account for her tomorrow and putting what little money she still has in it. I've turned off all the automatic payments that have been coming out of my account, and I'll be turning off all of the parental controls that I'd established on her electronics. Then I'm telling her, good luck, don't call me when you're on fire again, and then I'm blocking her on my phone. My brother and I believe she'll be in a mess again by the 4th of July. Her problem, not ours. I've had a heart issue for 2 years now. Inappropriate sinus tachycardia that isn't responding to medications. Both of my cardiologists have told me that stress is exacerbating my condition. I've lost 25 pounds over the last 3 months, which I'm also chalking up to stress. I literally cannot explain the peace I feel in my soul tonight, knowing that I've done everything I could for this woman, and now I just get to be done tomorrow. It's complicated and sad and frustrating because, oh, how I've tried to help her, and I know how this will end, but it's also very calming to know that I'm done. I am free. Well, I guess ultimately my reaction to this is that it's just really sad, really. I mean, if this is down to dementia or some sort of cognitive decline or, neurological disease that your mum now has, OP, then I don't know, it's sad. I mean, I could just say that, oh, it's such a shame that scammers like this exist and we need to crack down on them. Ultimately, they're always going to be around, and there's very little you can do, I think, to stop them, given that, the majority are abroad. But, I mean, maybe it's just one of those things where the government in whichever country this is taking place in has to, I don't know, create some sort of new scheme or just create more protection or put something in place to help elderly people in these sort of situations. Then again, like, what are you supposed to do when your own mum is refusing to go to neurological appointments that would then allow her to get the help that she needs? But then again, is that her fault because she has this disease in the first place? It's really, really tough. From your perspective, OP, I would say that it's hard, but could you not just go one little bit further and just force her to go to this appointment and then be done with it? I don't know. I mean, clearly this is having a massive impact on your life anyway, and it's easy for me to say that sitting here when you're the one that's lost 25 pounds because of stress and has a heart disease. What do you think? Get in the comments down below. Is OP correct at this moment to just say, you know what, I've tried all I can. This is having a real detriment on my life now. Not just my mental well-being, but my physical health as well is seriously declining. Should they do what they've done? Or could they just go a little bit further, get it done, and then be done with it? Because I just worry for your mum. It doesn't seem to me as if she's intending any malice by this. She's just in a terrible situation and is being exploited. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. Very, very tough one. Am I the jerk for telling my father that I don't care how nice his new girlfriend is, she'll never be welcome at my home? I am a 33-year-old woman, and my father, who's in his 60s, can't keep a girlfriend for long. My mum divorced him when I was a child, and since then, he's had no interest in remarrying and settling down. Today, his relationships don't tend to last much longer than a year. I'm married with 2 kids, an 8-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. Because I don't want them to get attached to a new step-grandma every few months, I laid some ground rules when my son was born. My father wasn't allowed to introduce any new girlfriends to them until 6 months into the relationship. For most of my kids' lives, we had no problems with that. Then came my father's girlfriend from 2022, who was an absolute nightmare of a person. My kids only met her once, but it was enough for me to consider her unsafe to be around my family. Though they later broke up, my father initially tried to justify her behaviour. Because of that whole affair, I changed the rule. He'd have to wait a year instead of 6 months before introducing a new girlfriend. If he tried to do so before that, she'd never be allowed to come to my place. He protested at first because most of his relationships don't last that long, but I held my ground and he eventually agreed. He was with another woman for 9 months last year and my children never met her. My father has been with his newest girlfriend for 6 months. I've never really met her because she lives an hour away. She is apparently kid obsessed and has been asking him to meet his grandkids for a while. He's tried to convince me to make an exception for her for a few months, but I always say no and remind him of my rules. My daughter is turning 4 this week, and we threw her a birthday party yesterday. It took place at an event space our building has. My father showed up an hour late with his new girlfriend. I approached them to ask what he was doing. He said that his girlfriend was excited to meet my kids, and he thought the birthday party would be a good place to introduce them. Because they'd been together for half a year, he didn't think it would be such a big deal. I told them the girlfriend had to leave before my kids saw her. My dad tried to give other excuses, such as the fact that my stepdad, who's been with my mum for more than 20 years, was there and said that if she left, so would he. I told him to be my guest, and they both left. Earlier today, my father called me. He told me off for kicking them out of the party. He said my rules were too restrictive and his girlfriend was a lovely person who deserved to meet my kids. I told him that not only do I not care how nice she is, but I'll also never welcome her at my home after the stunt he pulled. She can meet my kids after the 12-month mark, but not at my place. We fought for a while before he hung up on me. My husband and my sister, who's staying with us for a few days, witnessed most of the fight. My husband is on my side, but my sister thinks I'm being needlessly cruel to a woman that I've never met. So, am I the jerk? Now, there's a little bit more context here, which I think is very, very important before I get into my thoughts on this initially, before we then get into the update posted on r/EntitledParents. But OP has said that this is what happened to make her change the rule. So back in 2022, on our first meeting with my father's then girlfriend, the girlfriend slapped my 2-year-old daughter because she spilled a cup of juice on her lap, staining her white dress. We were across the room and weren't able to stop her until it was too late. When we confronted her, the excuse was that the dress was new and expensive. She refused to apologize. My daughter doesn't remember it, but my son witnessed the whole thing. My father only defended her when we kicked her out. He broke up with her the next day and apologized profusely. It took us a few months and a lot of talking things through to let him near our kids after that. Okay, so there we go. I feel like with that context now, we have the full picture and the rationale behind why OP has these strict rules in place. Now, I will say that I do actually agree with OP's sister. It is quite harsh on their dad's new girlfriend to not be able to see, you know, the kids for this length of time. I'd feel the same probably if I was the woman in question. She's probably like, you know, why am I not allowed to see your grandchildren? I've been with you for a long time now. Am I not allowed to see them? That's a shame. So I get it from her perspective. However, from your perspective, OP, it makes complete and utter sense. You can't trust your dad with his new partners. And I think that the example that we've just seen there is complete justification for why you can't. I mean, you just simply cannot let someone like that around your kids. And if you have any sort of potential thinking in your mind that a new person, a new woman in your dad's life might be, you know, there's even a 0.1% chance that something like this could happen again, then yeah, you got to stop it and have those strict boundaries. I think the person that is being punished here most is your dad, which is probably the right way of doing things. I mean, the fact that he didn't apologize until he was out of the house and it took months to reconcile is ridiculous. Surely you immediately just say, no, we're done. I'm so sorry. Let's try and move on as quickly as possible. But he didn't do that. Crazy. Now for him to have to explain to his new girlfriend the reasoning why she can't see his grandchildren, that is good punishment. And I would say it's tough for him to have to do that, but he's put himself in that position. So that's on him. But anyway, as I mentioned before we got into this one, there is an update to this posted on r/EntitledParents just 24 days ago. So let's get into that. All right, so OP says, I've mostly solved the situation since I posted on r/AmITheJerk. There are some things though that I think I should clarify about my relationship with my father first. I can't be the first to say this, but Reddit is by no means a place to accurately describe any type of relationship in full detail, especially a familial one. So those who said I don't like my father or don't approve of his lifestyle are jumping to conclusions. I love my father very much, and I'm grateful for everything he's done for me. But yeah, he's a jerk. We've had a rough relationship since I was a kid. It got much better after I moved out, mostly because we both realized we wouldn't have any relationship whatsoever if we didn't make efforts to change. As much as my father has become a better person, he still has some extremely narcissistic tendencies that make themselves obvious every now and then. The one that's the most relevant in this situation is the fact that he is terrible with boundaries. I came up with a metaphor in the comments on my previous post that I think illustrates this. He wants a door. I give him a window instead. He says he's fine with the window. Next thing I know, he's throwing rocks at the window until it's big enough to be a door. Yes, that is actually a very good metaphor. Not the best metaphor I've ever written, but I think it applies. You know what? No, I like it, and I think it makes complete sense. And I want to add that one of the main reasons our relationship was so rocky when I was younger was because I had no means of restoring the window. Now that we don't live together and I pay my own bills, it's gotten easier to either stop him from throwing the rocks or not give him windows in the first place. And I, for one, hope this analogy continues throughout the rest of this post. On that note, my father is a pretty hands-on grandfather. We only see him once a month, but he FaceTimes me frequently and the kids love him. So introducing new girlfriends as grandpa's friends, as many suggested, wouldn't work. We tried it once and they blew their cover in less than an hour. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, I guess that probably wouldn't work. Also, it's not that I don't approve of my father's lifestyle, I simply don't care. I'm 33 years old. I have a job, a husband, and 2 children. My father's dating habits are neither my business nor my concern. He can date anyone he wants for as long as he wants, as long as everyone is over 18 and not a complete monster. What I do care about is how this affects my children. I've been dealing with my father's revolving door since I was 10. Back then, his relationships tended to last at least 2 years, but it still took a toll on both me and my younger sister. The first woman my father dated after the divorce was insane and ruined my childhood. The next one was amazing, but didn't stick around for long. The following one was unpleasant. The list goes on. I don't want my children to go through this lack of stability. I'm carrying that baggage. They don't need to know how heavy it is. The last thing I want to add here is that my father has another major problem. He is obsessed with both pleasing everyone and the idea that I have to please everyone. That almost ruined our relationship completely when I was younger. And sadly, he hasn't really let go of that yet. The former is why he defended his 2022 girlfriend. OP explained that in the edit of the previous post that I read. And the latter is the reason he was so angry at me for banning his new girlfriend after the party fiasco. Alright, so on to the actual update. My father and I had a minor fight over the phone about what happened at the party on Monday. 2 days later, his new girlfriend called me. She asked me why I'd banned her from my home before even meeting her or introducing my children. I told them to leave before the kids saw them. I asked her if she knew about my 12-month rule. Not only did she know, but she also insisted that my father break the rule anyway. She said she was great with kids and knew my children would love her, so she thought it wouldn't be a big deal for me to make an exception for her. Yet that is a massive, massive red flag. Surely, if you knew about the rule, you would respect it first of all, then at least try and make a relationship with OP and show her through, having conversations, having great times over a couple of months or whatever, that you are a nice person. And then you'd hopefully show her that you are ready to meet her children. And yeah, maybe then she might change her rule and her boundaries. But you wouldn't say to your husband or your boyfriend, oh, you need to just break these rules. They're stupid anyway. And I'm great around kids. Really, really weird, and I guess is a good reason and a good showing as to why those rules exist in the first place. Kind of mad. I came very close to hanging up on her when she said that, OP continues. The whole reason I even came to Reddit was because I thought I was being unfair to her, but this made it clear to me that she was also in the wrong. Yeah, exactly. Instead, I decided to explain the 2022 incident. She didn't know about it. When I was done, she said she understood why the rule was created and apologized for trying to break it. Okay, that's good at least. I called my father the next day and I told him about the chat I'd had with his girlfriend. He confirmed everything. He took her to the party because she wanted to go and he wanted to make her happy. We had a very long discussion that almost escalated into a fight. I reminded him of the reasons my rule existed. The only one he truly deemed valid was the 2022 incident, which he's still ashamed of. The discussion touched many other topics, but the main one was that my children are the priority. I told my father that my main concern is protecting them, and I won't hesitate to cut anyone off, including family, if it means doing so. In the end, he agreed to deal with the consequences. His new girlfriend will be allowed to meet my kids at the 12-month mark, but she won't be welcome at my place. But if he tries to pull this stunt again, they'll both be cut off. We ended the call on a cold note, but he called me again on Friday. He apologized for everything and said I was a great mother. I can tell when he's being sincere at this point, so I accepted the apology. Knowing my family, I don't think there'll be any problems with this for a while, and if there are, I've got it covered. I think this will be my last post. Thank you all for the support and encouragement you've given me. Yeah, to be fair, I think that is the thing that shines throughout this entire post, the original and the update, is that you just know exactly what you want, OP, and you're not taking any trash from anyone, even your own father, even his new girlfriend. You're just like, no, it's my life now. I had this not great childhood with you controlling it and you having random women that just weren't very nice to me, and that was terrible. So no. This is my life now. This is my family. I'm doing exactly what I want and what I think is best for them. And that's it. Simple as that. You're either on board with that and you can come along for the ride, or if you're not, then I'm cutting all ties and you're not going to be a part of this. I love it. It's how you got to be, but a lot of people struggle to be exactly like OP. So yeah, respect. All right, now on to our next Entitled Parents story. This one is a little bit more lighthearted, but it's kind of mental. Let's get into it. So, apparently it's my fault you go to Dunkin' every day. First, let me say that I am honoured that I have this much power in my co-worker's life. I had no idea, and apparently I'm using this power for evil instead of good. Story time. My co-worker is extremely behind on bills because her college-aged daughter uses her credit card, and she racked up thousands in food-related charges in under one semester. Over 5,000. Oh my goodness. My co-worker still gave her the card the next semester because she couldn't have the daughter walk to the dining hall and have food she didn't like, but was the food that she already paid for, and didn't want to cook in the kitchen even though she paid for a weekly grocery delivery from the grocery store. But, you know, I'm not a parent, so maybe I don't understand. Anyways, my co-worker is looking to save money. I wonder why. I grab coffee daily from the lunchroom. Basically, it's hot water that I add my own stuff to, coffee and creamer. Well, herein lies the problem. My co-worker keeps forgetting to buy the coffee she needs, and I'm not sharing my expensive coffee with her. I draw the line. Now, by forget, I mean she runs to the grocery store almost daily because she needs cereal the day they run out of the one they like, instead of eating the other one in the house. Again, not a mother, so maybe this is normal, but if I tried that with my mother, I would not have eaten cereal. So instead of just going on Amazon like a normal human being, she needs to grab Dunkin' every morning. Now to the part where I am costing her money. We have free coffee downstairs and free cream, but again, it's downstairs. This co-worker walks by it every morning when she does remember to bring coffee, but she forgets to grab the cream and messages me saying that she's too tired and doesn't know what she's going to do. The thing is, I have cream at my desk. My cream is not the same as the downstairs cream. You see guys, I buy my cream in flavours in the single serve variety, in larger quantities because I'm horrible at remembering to buy it, so I stock up. Theoretically, yes, I have extra, but the guilting text came daily for weeks, although she never outright asked. I always said, well, hey, just grab some downstairs. She told me that because she doesn't have cream, she now just stops at Dunkin' every morning. So because I won't share my $50 worth of cream, she's now telling me she goes to Dunkin', which she can't afford. I can see where the daughter gets it from. I figured you guys needed a laugh. Okay, now that was just absolutely ridiculous. If you're too lazy and too unorganized to do the most basic thing and buy yourself coffee and cream, then you don't deserve it. And also, you know exactly what you're doing by sending these texts. You're just too much of a loser to say, oh, can I just borrow a bit of cream, bit of coffee one day. I'll get my own the next time. I feel like if you just did that and accepted that you just forgot and you don't have any with you and you would really love some nice coffee and you'll get it the next time, you might even get it back for OP the next time when they're out, then I feel like OP would say, you know what, yeah, fine. But if you're doing all of this every single day for months on end, and we're not going to get into the parenting side of things here, but the way that you're treating your daughter as her mum is kind of crazy. Like, not even punishing her at all for racking up over $5,000 of credit card debt, and instead saying, nah, just keep paying it, I'll deal with this. Yeah, insane. I don't know. I feel like OP is the sort of person who would say, you know what, yeah, I've got you this time, don't worry. But not with somebody like this who is just, beyond helpless. Now for our final entitled parent story of this episode. Entitled parents think they own my apartment and had no regard for boundaries. I remember when it was my brother's graduation and my mum insisted that I attend family events. I had just finished freshman year and gained 20 pounds from depression and isolation. I thought about transferring colleges and giving up my scholarship because that is how much I hated my college. Nevertheless, I attended his graduation because my mum insisted. I stayed at his place for a week before my mum joined us from another country. I started shedding a lot of hair from stress and depression, but I had no idea. Since I was sharing space with him, I had little space to put my belongings. My hair shedded in the bathroom, but I didn't notice it, and it happened for a couple of days where my hair sat in the bathroom. Without warning, my brother aggressively pushed me to the ground and started yelling why I didn't clean up. He also screamed again because I spread 2 books, a laptop and snacks on his desk to work on my transfer essays. He kept pointing at my thighs and laughing. The whole graduation trip, which I came for my brother, turned into emotional scapegoating. I told my mum about this, but she shrugged and said, his place, his rules. I failed my college transfer, was extremely exhausted, and I suffered 4 years of college. Now fast forward 10 years and he got married. My brother and I were not on good terms and we'd stopped talking. I have my own apartment and I've always avoided family problems when my mum visited me. Now, she brought with her my brother's wife because she was working in my neighborhood and decided to tag along. I told my mum in the lobby that I don't welcome her, but she brushed it off and said, come on, she's just family. My mum kept pushing to let her and the wife in and I had to push them back away from the door. I finally snapped. My whole family started knocking me after this incident. My brother even said he's going to name his child after me, and they all started laughing. They've got no respect for me and my physical boundaries at my own apartment, including my mum. What happened to her house, her rules? My mum just shrugged again and said, oh, don't you worry, she doesn't even want to come to your house. What the heck is wrong with her? Yeah, a pretty sad way to end this episode, not gonna lie. I mean, that's not really entitled, that's just bullying. Like, you're just being bullied by your whole family, and it sounds like you have been your entire life. Can't really sugarcoat it, my friend. I mean, the easy option, I guess, for me to say when I'm sat here in my room is just say, yeah, cut them off, because they just sound like terrible people. I don't really know how easy that is in reality, but yeah, you are just being bullied by your own family. I mean, guys, comment down below. Isn't that just what's happening here? I don't see any other way in which that's not what's going on. So, yeah. Pretty tough, but hey, pretty brutal end to this one. Parents had me sign over $200,000 of inheritance. When my grandfather died during COVID, I received a legal document asking to sign over $200,000 from my grandfather's insurance policy so my parents could receive that as well as their $200,000. My brother also received a letter. My parents didn't talk to me about this, so I sent a text asking about it. And I got a response saying I needed to sign the money over because my grandfather spent all their inheritance at the end of his life. They were entitled to his insurance policy because they needed a house. I did, and now I regret it. I tried to speak to my brother about it shortly after I signed, and he immediately told my dad, and I got a nasty email from him saying if I didn't move on from it, the relationship would be irreparable. It was very hurtful. My parents ended up buying a really nice house and are set for life. They've treated me pretty badly ever since too. My brother helped sell everything in my grandfather's house and the actual house as well, and I'm sure he got money because he also bought a house during this time. My brother was very abusive to me during this, micromanaging what I took. My father put him in charge of his estate, saying I could only take my grandmother's clothes, but I'm not allowed to sell any of them. My grandmother had died 10 years prior. My brother actually screamed and yelled at me one day because I went to get her clothes without asking permission. So he locked me out of their house, then accused me of weird things like stealing stuff after he'd locked me out. At the time, I decided to detach myself from the situation as it was causing emotional stress, and this was during the COVID lockdown. Now, I've been having difficulties finding a place to live. My son, husband, and I keep moving into moldy apartment after moldy apartment the last few years. It never ends. We cannot afford to rent a house, and we're struggling. My parents, though, don't want to hear my struggles. They get mad and gaslight me like I'm making these problems up. Our last move 2 weeks ago was from rainwater coming through the ceiling. I talked to my mum yesterday and she was saying that she didn't understand why we moved and said she felt sorry for my husband. I went off on her and I brought up the money for the first time, then I hung up on her. It's been almost 4 years and only last year I realised what a terrible mistake I made. I don't know what to do except just completely detach from them. I sent my aunt a message, who also received $200,000 and was well off beforehand, asking why I was asked to sign the money to my parents. It was their decision and no one has had the balls to explain it. So am I wrong to even bring it up now? Oh, what a tragic start to this episode. I mean, that is just brutal. I don't think anything can be done. I don't think you're wrong to bring it up now and to get some form of emotional justice, I suppose, by having people tell you and you now finally understanding, OP, that what happened was horrible and so unfair. But in terms of like the legalities of this, I feel like unless you can prove that you were forced to sign this over under duress, there's nothing you can do. Like, your parents just played you. They manipulated you. I can't quite believe it, but yeah, legally, I think you're in the mud. Listen, cynically, I could sit here and say, what were you thinking by doing this? But, you know, you're a kid and your parents are your parents. Throughout your entire life, you're told, like, listen to your parents, they know best. And you were probably just doing that. But I don't know, maybe you're just being naive or just didn't understand the brutality and the truth of the situation. But my goodness me, you know what, maybe it is worth getting a lawyer involved just to see what could possibly be done. I hope for your sake that something can be, but I just don't think it can. Now moving on to our second entitled parent story of this episode. My entitled mum wants me to pay my creep stepbrother's student debt. I am a 29-year-old woman and I have an older stepbrother, Chris, who is 42, who's been a nightmare since the day my mum married his dad. Let me give a bit of background. Our parents married when I was 4 and he was 17. Both our parents were widowed. After their wedding, we moved to the US since my mum had American citizenship through marriage. I was born in the US too, but after my dad died when I was 1, my mum and I moved back to Colombia. Stepdad got his residency through marriage and my stepbrother because he was a minor. Now, my stepbrother wasn't a big fan of me. My only memories of him are just constant bullying. He'd be left in charge of me since he was studying locally and lived with my parents, but mostly his babysitting really meant things like locking me in the guest bathroom or the shed outside. He'd steal my lunchbox whenever he was the one who dropped me off at school. He even began to harm my pets. I have an old cat that has been with me for almost 22 years. He tried more than once to run her over with his car. My parents never believed any of it. He's the classic golden child. My mum absolutely wanted a son instead of a daughter, so my stepbrother took priority over me. The bullying just kept getting worse and creepier. He had this long key for the bathroom. The door was designed so in case it got locked by accident, one could open it by inserting a long stick or key through a small hole on the outside. He would use it to walk in on me showering. My underwear would disappear sometimes, and I know for a fact it was him. He also started taking pictures of me sleeping. One night, I woke up to him taking care of himself next to me while I slept. I yelled, obviously. My parents came over, but he wasn't in trouble. I was for tempting him. I was 14 when this happened. He was 27. Oh my goodness me. No one helped me, and he got bolder until he did something I'm still in therapy for when I was 16. It got to a point where I called my biological half-older brother, Sam, who is a 48-year-old and son of my biological father's first wife, to see if I could live with him and his wife, Sandy, during my last 2 years of high school. When Sam found out what was going on, he confronted my mum. My mum didn't care and just told him to take me so long he never asked her for money. Done and done. My brother and his wife became my legal guardians and took me in with my cat and the old family dog since I didn't trust leaving any living creature with Chris around. My parents never checked on me. My extended family from my father's side knew what happened, and they immediately got together to ensure that I could finish school well and go to college. I don't know my maternal family at all. Thanks to my paternal family, including Sam's mother and her family, I got my bachelor's and master's, had no student debt, and I work as a nurse practitioner. I still live with Sam, his wife, and their 2 kids, and I pay a small amount of rent. Neither Sam nor his wife expected me to pay anything, but that is the least I can do for the 2 people who have taken care of me for 13 years. Now, for anyone wondering why I haven't moved on, it's incredibly expensive where I live, and Sam insisted that I stay with them until I save enough to buy my own home. Things seemed okay until my mum messaged me recently. She'd not messaged me since I was 18 when she told me she no longer had any responsibility to me. In this message, she sounded overly friendly, telling me how she missed me and asking how I was doing. I was a bit creeped out, but I decided to be nice, telling her about what I'd done since leaving her care. She seemed very interested, since apparently she knew I was a nurse, but not what kind I was. She began asking me about my salary. I didn't tell her anything about it, but that it was enough to pay the bills. My mum then began texting about Chris, and how he was barely making any money due to his student debt. Apparently, Chris never finished a degree, jumping from career to career. He's now working in my stepdad's used car business as a salesman, but most of his pay went to pay the substantial student debt that he got over the year. I told my mum how sorry I was that Chris was having a hard time, and I wished him luck. That is when my mum finally got to what she wanted. She texted me saying that I needed to pay his student debt so he could finally begin to make the money he deserves like the man of the family. I just turned off my phone. When I got home, Sam was surprised, since I was usually the last to arrive. Sandy wasn't home yet. I told Sam what happened, and I showed him my mum's text messages. I don't think I've seen Sam this angry ever. He told me to block my mum, stepdad, and Chris if I hadn't done so yet. After talking with Sam and Sandy, I called my boss to ask for the next day and the one after off. This gave me a 4-day weekend, including the days that I'm normally off shift. My boss was more than okay with this and told me to just take it easy and let her know if she could help. This backfired because the next day my mum and Chris decided to come to Sam's house to speak to me. I was alone since Sam and Sandy were at work and the kids were at school. I immediately called Sam and told him what was going on. He told me not to open the door and that he was on his way. My mum spent the whole time screaming that I owed them for raising me and that my sweet brother deserved the money. Chris was going around trying to find a window or door unlocked. There weren't any, since the windows have safety bars and the only other door is in the closed garage and one in the yard. The yard one was locked, and just in case, I locked the one in the garage. I won't post what he called me when he saw me from one of the windows, but basically, he pretty much told me they should have thrown me away when I was a baby, since I grew up to be a B. He pounded in one of the windows so hard that he actually cracked the glass. Eventually, he gave up and went back to the front door, clearly trying to kick it down. I didn't have anything to worry about. The door was a security door, but I was still very scared. Between yelling, threatening, pleading, and insults, I finally heard Sam screaming to them to get lost. I only saw things from the window. Sam pretty much dragged them both off the porch. They got to a point that I couldn't hear, but I saw my mum and Chris pale and look scared before they pretty much ran to their car and drove off way past the legal speed limit. Sam came in a little bit after and immediately went full overprotective brother mode, asking me if I was okay. He kept saying sorry and hugging me. Sandy arrived almost immediately after, and she looked like she was about to commit a felony. Apparently, Sam threatened him with filing charges for what he did to me when I was 16. My brother's ace, my stepdad, was willing to testify against his own son. That seemed enough to get Chris off our backs, but not my mum. Since then, it's been 3 days, and my mum has sent texts, called non-stop with various numbers, and rallied a group of people who are supposedly my maternal family to harass me for money. She claims that money should legally be hers since she's my mother, that it's my late father's missed child support. Sam's helping me find a lawyer to get a restraining order on my mum, and I plan to take my stepdad's offer to testify by pressing charges against Chris. I can't say I can forgive him for not stopping his son, but I appreciate that he's at least trying. I don't know the details, but Chris did something to a relative of his dad, and since then they had a really bad fallout. I took my boss's offer and I'll be on vacation for a few more days. But here it is. My vacation days are getting eaten up and my therapist might need a therapist after. Thankfully, my dark sense of humor and supportive paternal family are keeping me somewhat sane. Oh my goodness me. Now, I thought the first story was pretty bad, but that was just money. This is way, way worse. I mean, look, getting financially ruined by your parents is one thing, as we saw in the first story, or them stealing money from you, in effect, is one thing. But this, the horrible, traumatic stuff that has happened to you, that yeah, as you say, is the reason you're still in therapy now. Then the money on top of that, goodness me. I mean, this is just worse. Wow. I mean, let's just focus on the money for now. Yeah, with that, I guess just make sure that you have security measures put in place to make sure that that can't be taken from you. But that's just a minor thing, I feel like, at this point. The rest of this stuff is just insane. These people aren't just entitled, they're literally like disgusting. Worst of the worst, should be in prison sort of level. Let's be honest. I mean, there is some illegal stuff here that's happened. That's kind of clear. I will say it does sound good that you have people now that you can actually trust. Sam and his family. I mean, that's just brilliant that they're coming in and helping you. It's about time, is all I'll say, because your mum and your stepbrother are two of the worst humans that I've ever come across. Now for our final entitled parent story of this one. My mum stole my money that I've been saving for a month. I've been working every single day for a month without a day off because I wanted to go on a vacation with my friends after graduation. I worked so hard for this. I was saving cash in my drawer and there's a lock on it, so wherever I go, I take that key with me. But today, my stupid butt forgot the key on the dining table. I went to the bathroom to shower. Nobody was home except my mother and me. My siblings were at school in an exam, so when I finished showering, I saw the keys at my room and I didn't care. I thought maybe I'd moved them before I went to the bathroom. Then I prepared my desk to study. When I finished studying, I thought maybe I could go and hang out with my friends. So I opened my drawer and the money was gone. All of it. Nothing left. So obviously nobody's home except me and my mum. I confronted her as calmly as I could. And I said, "Did you open my drawer?" I swear I noticed her hands were shaking and she said, "No, I didn't." "Why?" I said, "Well, my money's gone." She said, "I didn't take anything. Someone's stealing my money as well. Or maybe you dropped it somewhere like you always do, you careless donkey." I replied, "Well, if someone's stealing your money, why would you take mine?" "You don't dare talk to me like that. I'm your mother. Close the door and get out of my sight before I pray that you fail your exams. What are you going to do with money anyway? You're still young. Money comes and goes." I didn't know what to say, and I went back to my room and texted my dad and told him what happened, and he still didn't respond to me. My final exams are in 2 weeks and I can't work anymore. And me and my friends, were planning that on the last day of the exam, we'd head straight to Sharm el-Sheikh. This is the first time in my entire life that I feel so helpless and betrayed like that. After graduation, I'm going to move out of my parents' home. Even if I become homeless, I don't care anymore. And there we go. That is going to do it for the final story. What I would say to you, OP, is yes, clearly you've got to go. You just do. It's going to be tough, but I think you just have to. When you do move out though, make it clear to her that you want absolutely no contact with her. Look her in the eye and tell her that. And then go and live a life with people that you can actually trust. Because, you know, if your own mother is doing this to you, how can you ever have a relationship with her? It's impossible. Can you call the cops on her? I don't know. Maybe not, because she's your own mum, but it is technically your money. Yes, it's in your house or her house, but it is your money and she has stolen it from you. That is illegal. I don't know. It depends to what level you want to go. But again, I think it is probably worth getting legal involved in some way, because what's the worst that could happen? Oh, actually, to be fair, OP has said in the comments down below, in a reply to a comment saying, "Can you call the cops?" That's an amazing idea. I'm going to try it as soon as she gets home. Thanks, man. Well, there you go. I mean, I will say, even if you don't get anything done, like, you know, legally, telling your mum that you've called the police on her and being completely serious with her might make her just give it back to you anyway. Now, yes, that's not going to solve all your issues, but at least you'll have the money back. Hopefully she'll just crumble and say, "Oh, don't worry, don't involve the police. Please, you're my son, etc., etc. Here's the money. I'm so sorry." Now, still move out, still get rid of her, still never talk to her again. But yeah, at that point, at least you have the money. Or you can go the other way and don't tell her and then just have the police come around and arrest her and charge her. That's the level. I mean, it's up to you where you want to go with this. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like police need to be involved.
She's under 10, so she eats for free. I own a small restaurant. Classic American foods, decent prices, kid-friendly. One of our policies is that kids 10 and under can get anything off the kids menu for free. The stuff on the kids menu is cheap, like a bowl of mac and cheese with some chicken nuggets isn't breaking my bank on food cost. A hot dog and some fries aren't going to bankrupt me. Last night, I was sitting in the office watching some YouTube videos when I noticed a family that I know personally. Their daughter, 12, is friends with my granddaughter, who is 13. When I see people I know, I have a tendency to sort of take over the table. The server still gets the tip, but I give the table a lot of extra attention. So I stop over and say hi, and I check their ticket in the computer out of curiosity. The dad got our 22-ounce porterhouse with a fully dressed potato, butter, cheese, sour cream, bacon, chili, ranch dressing, and crispy fried onions. Goodness me, I hope none of you are hungry listening to this. That has got me salivating. The mum got our fried catfish and hush puppies. The daughter got our pulled pork cheeseburger with onion rings. Note, the daughter ordered off the main menu, not the kids menu. Anyway, they spent about 40 minutes eating, drinking, and generally being merry. Both myself and their server are keeping an eye on their drinks, making sure they're having a good experience. I even gave them 5 free credits on the jukebox, just to be nice. I head back to the office to take a phone call, and while I'm back there, I notice a commotion on the cameras at that very same table. Before I can make it to the dining room, the server is in the kitchen, heading towards my office. Apparently, there was a mistake with their tab, and their daughter's meal should have been free. The server tried to explain that that only applies to items on the kids menu, and the girl had ordered off the main menu. The explanation fell on deaf ears. So I head out to solve the problem. I explain that not only did the girl order off the main menu, but I know for a fact that their daughter is not 10 or under, since my granddaughter had been to her 12th birthday party back in March. The mum tried to argue, but the dad put his hand up, apologised for his wife's behaviour, and passed me his card to pay. Before they'd even left my establishment, the mum had already left a nasty and completely false Google review stating that we lie about our policies and kids don't really get free meals. Okay, well, it's a good thing that the dad is sensible, unlike the mum. But what I really want to see out of this, and I personally love when I see this, is when you see a bad Google review left for a particular establishment. To be honest, a lot of the time it is a restaurant. And then immediately under that, you can see the response left by the restaurant owner that just destroys the original review, just literally sentence for sentence. Every single point, a lot of the time, the manager has a rebuttal for. So I'd love to see this in this situation. You know, the woman clearly lying about what had happened, probably saying my kid's under 10, but wasn't allowed to have, you know, a free meal, even though she ordered it off the kids menu. Just obviously all a lie there. And I'd love to see OP just, say, no, not true at all, and completely ratio the original review. Now moving on to our second story of the episode. This one actually has an update afterwards as well. My parents assume they are going to move in with me when they are old. I was on the phone with them this morning because they called after I texted them an update on my husband's and my house hunting adventure. I'm currently pregnant with baby number 3 and live safely 15-ish hours away from these people who birthed and raised me, while simultaneously messing me up mentally and emotionally. Why I stay in contact with them nowadays is becoming more and more of a mystery to me, but here we are. Well, while looking at one of the houses I was describing online, my dad asked where would they stay in the future. Stupidly thinking, as a guest, I mentioned one of the extra rooms could be a multi-purpose room. If you have an air mattress and you're coming for a visit, there you go. This house has 4 bedrooms, 5 if you count one of the rooms on the main floor. He then asked about permanently, further in the future. I said, permanently? He said, when I retire, or sometime after that, you know, stairs won't be your mum's and my friends around then. What, you think you'll be living with us? Of course. No, I say. But we can help with the kids. No. Then my mum got involved. Remember, we always talked about this when you were younger. No. What, are you gonna put us in a home? You'll make friends, I said. Well, that's not nice of you. I never said I was. The discussion ended after that. And then a few days later, we got the following update. So for a little bit more context, first of all, I am a 29-year-old woman, my husband is 28, and we are house hunting as we're expecting our 3rd baby in November and are hoping to move out of our trailer park by the end of summer. We were interested in a house that was essentially my dream home. Victorian, built in 1900, but completely refurbished on the inside, but with all the original wood floors and detailing, gorgeous. A house like this would easily be $200,000 last year or the year before, but the housing market is dropping and we found it for approximately $140,000. We live in the Midwest. Oh my goodness me. So a 5-bedroom or 4-bedroom house for $140,000. Oh, the fact that I live in London sometimes is just absolutely brutal. That is a disgusting price. Oh my goodness me. Genuinely, 10 times the price of that you would need for a house like that in London. It's just insane. Anyway, it has 4 to 5 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms. There we go. OP has clarified. My parents the other day asked where they would stay when we come to live with you. That's in quotes. Now, this was never a discussion. They just always assumed they'd live with me when they're older, and I always said no. Well, we messaged the finance person about what the monthly payments would really be. On the app, it estimated $950 plus a month. We figured we could swing that, but needed to know for sure before putting an offer in. She came back with over $1,000. That's not doable for us. We're going through a program and have a grant, so we aren't rich. Lower middle class at best. Thankfully, we have another house we had in mind. A craftsman style built in 1920, with built-ins, wood floors, and a nice-sized fenced-in backyard. The basement even has a slightly finished room, perfect for hiding from storms and tornadoes. And it's $20,000 less than the dream house. It's just a little smaller, and bedrooms were pretty small, but it's something I was willing to deal with. We saw it before we saw the dream house. Well, when updating my parents on the house situation, my mum all but threw a fit. You don't have to go with the first house you see. It wasn't, I replied. You can wait until something else comes up. Actually, no, we can't. Some weird law passes in our state in regards to realtors, and our realtor wants us to find a house before it goes into full effect in July/August, which just gives us more incentive to find a house pronto. So far, no other houses have popped up in our area in our budget. You're about to have your 3rd kid. Where are you going to put him? Well, bunk beds are a thing. Are you going to sleep in the basement if you have more? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It's so tiny. It's bigger than what pictures show, but yes, compared to the dream house, it's definitely smaller than that, but it's also more realistic. I knew what she was really worried about though the whole time. Where will we stay? But she didn't say it. She started looking at other houses on the app and tried to bring them up to me. They were all houses we'd already looked at or were too far away from my husband's work. She was really trying. My dad was actually pretty chill about the whole thing. She even brought up a house that needed serious work. We want to live in the house, Mum, and we don't want a money pit. She practically growled at me. The call soon ended after that. The one thing I don't really ever understand with these people is just like where their conscience is at or just how they feel about things in general just makes no sense to me. If I was begging my own children to let me live with them when I'm older, I would just be so like, I don't know, I'd have to be in such a weird mindset or just state to do that. Especially when I'm still perfectly happy like living with my husband or wife or whatever. It's just weird. Are you not just chill living on your own? Do you really want to be around your kids that much or just use them, I think, is really what's going on here to such an extent. But then I feel like in my head, I'd just be like, what am I doing? I'm using my own kids for housing. Am I not a bit better than that? Should it not, if anything, be the other way around? I don't know. It's really weird. If you actually need to live with your children for sort of, medical reasons or because you are incapable of doing things and living by yourself because you're older, that's completely fair enough. But that's just not what's going on here. So I don't get it. It's just a very, very weird mentality, I think. Left her kid alone in a bookstore for hours and thought it was totally normal. This here happened a while ago. I recently got reminded of it after meeting an old friend, and I thought I'd share this story because I know after 13 years in retail/customer services that many people would think that what she did was okay. Back when I worked in a bookstore in a shopping mall, there was this little girl, maybe 5 to 6 years old, just sitting quietly in a corner, looking at the pictures of a book. At that moment, we just noticed her because she was kind of hidden, tucked in a corner, and was totally silent. We asked where her parents were. She said her mummy was in the shop next to ours and told her to wait in the bookstore. We asked if she knew how long it had been, and she pointed to the hands of the clock where they'd been when her mum left. It had been nearly 3 hours. I still can't believe that kid stayed quiet for so long, and I'm still kicking myself for not noticing her sooner. We took her to the mall security and they started looking for the mum. That brainless woman was in another mall next to ours. We have 3 smaller shopping malls on the same street next to each other. The mall security was shocked. One of them was a dad and went to get the kid biscuits and an apple juice. He knew right away she was really hungry after 3 hours all alone waiting. I never forgot how happy she was munching on those chocolate chip cookies and sipping her juice box. They called the police and child protection services. Me and my colleague waited with the kid. We actually had brought the book with us for some reason, so she wouldn't be too scared. When the mum finally arrived, I swear she did not understand at all why what she did was wrong and got annoyed at us for going to security. She argued that her daughter was safe in our store and that she, quote, knew to not cause trouble. That got the police suspicious because the kid was indeed very quiet and eerily well behaved. Looking back, it's kind of obvious that she was scared into being this quiet and calm as a child. The mother's justification was basically that since our store was selling books for kids and some toys, we were essentially babysitters and that we were the ones in the wrong for not, quote, wanting to do our job and watch the children. Needless to say, the cops were just totally done with her and took her to the police station. The kid went with child protection services. The mum was kicking and screaming, threatening to sue us for slander and defamation. Now, of course, that never happened, but I hope this little girl is now with better people. She's now with people who love and cherish her. Yeah, I mean, surely that's just illegal, guys. But to be honest, I actually don't know the rules about if you're allowed to leave your kid just randomly in public, but I presume it's got to be illegal. I mean, it has to be, right? Child protection services have got to be having a look at this and saying, it's just not right. I agree with your last point, though. I hope she is with better people. And you're right. No child that age, usually 5 to 6 years old, would be quiet for that length of time. Clearly, they were very hungry as well, without it being drummed into them in probably a very, well, bordering on abusive, if not abusive way, that they have to be quiet. So yeah, a lot's going on there. Not just this one incident, there's probably a lot more bad stuff happening as well. Neighbor thinks her kid's bedtime should decide when I can do my hobbies. My neighbor, who is a 27-year-old woman, has 5 kids and 1 more on the way. She doesn't work. She's not ill or anything, just chooses not to. Lives off benefits and is all sorts of entitled. Tonight, I was working on my brother's birthday present, and this included needing to make a few cuts with the chop saw. It was 9 PM and I was done by 9:15 PM. In my country, the curfew for noise and noise disturbance is 11:30 PM. She then sends me this long Facebook message about how her kid's bedtime is 8 PM, and therefore I need to not use power tools after that time, and could I only use them in the daytime so as to not wake her kids. I replied saying I was done now. Bear in mind, she sent that message after literally less than 10 minutes of noise, and that I couldn't confine my usage to daytime because I have a job. I could have said a lot more. I felt like saying to her, your kids are going to be living with a screaming newborn in a few months, so maybe focus on teaching them to sleep without it being perfectly silent. But I restrained myself. Even so, the very little I did say clearly set her off. She sent me another paragraph about her kids needing to be ready for school at 8 AM before blocking me. Now, I will just say here that I do think that being respectful to your neighbors and people living around you in terms of noise pollution is a very fair thing. And, you know, if you know that you live around families that have young children that want to get to sleep early, I would suggest that in general, trying not to use power tools late at night is a good thing to do, which, by the way, I'm sure OP does in general. However, on one-off occasions where you need to do something, and yeah, obviously you can't choose, you know, to use any hour of the day to use your power tools if you have a normal life with a normal job and other commitments, then it's absolutely fine to do. And I think her reaction is pretty insane, to be honest. Yeah, the main point being, you have to teach your children how to sleep through a lot of noise. I mean, now, thankfully, due to my parents, I think, teaching me as a child to sleep with a lot of noise going on. I know that sounds weird, but my mum actually does often say to me, oh, aren't you lucky that we used to vacuum around your cot when you were young? Because I sleep under the flight path. Last year, I slept right on a main road with loads of cars going through. Completely fine. I think it's up to your parents, really, to teach children how to do that, and not up to everyone else in the neighborhood to work around young children. Yeah, it's nice to be nice, but not all the time, and you can't just be living your life to the strict, regimented daily schedule of children. Now for our final entitled parent story of this episode. Entitled Disney Adult demands that I change clothes in the middle of a crowded restaurant. To preface, this situation came up a few years back, but still lives rent-free in my mind from how absurd it was. I was on a family vacation at Disney World a few years back. I, 19 years old at the time, was staying on property at a resort. But on our first night, we had dining reservations at a different hotel that was a fair distance away. It was a casual buffet-style restaurant, so there was no dress code or reason to be fancy. So I wore a pair of shorts and a graphic tee of a unicorn that said, "Everything sucks," in a glittery cursive font. About halfway into dinner, when I got up to get seconds, a woman, probably in her 40s, stepped up to physically block me and immediately started shouting in my face about my obscene clothing. I just stood there completely baffled, while she went on and on about how our young children, who were calmly eating on the other side of the room, were being distressed by my, quote, disgusting and inappropriate shirt, and then she demanded I take it off in the middle of the restaurant. When I told her I don't exactly carry replacement clothes with me, she demanded that I go to the gift shop and buy a new family-friendly shirt, specifically one with Disney princesses or Minnie on it, because that's what her children would like to see. At that point, I didn't want to deal with her anymore and said that I'm not here to appeal to kids I don't even know. The waitress would have stopped me at check-in if there was a problem with my clothing, and I just wanted to eat my dinner and leave. I walked away to get the rest of my meal and left her screaming at me for a few minutes before she eventually gave up. I hope those kids turned out okay. You know what I would have done in that situation right there? And I wouldn't have done this, right? But in my heart of hearts, I would have loved to do this. It's just take my top off and just like whip it around my head and just chuck it. I've been like, there you go. You happy now? Are you happy now? This is what you asked for. Just full nips out. In fact, I'm going to do it now. But in all seriousness, I mean, this woman's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You should have said to her, well, if you want me to change my shirt, go and buy me one from the gift store. Then I'll change it. Because in that way, you're getting a good deal. Even if the shirt's terrible, you could then donate it afterwards and keep your own shirt. But yeah, insane. Again, kind of similar to the last story. Not everyone is going to work around your children who also, again, by the way, don't care at all. What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, before we get into the more regular Reddit story stuff today, and don't worry, we're going to get into that, I first of all need to tell you about an article and a story that I've seen online, which has absolutely just shocked me and blown my mind. As you can tell by the title of this one, this is technically r/EntitledParents. I think the story that you're about to see goes a long way beyond that, but I just had to show you guys. I had to bring it to your attention. Here it is. Now, we talk about titles of news articles. This is on Daily Express US, and the title of this article is Boy, 10, crushed to death by £340 foster mum after she sat on him for misbehaving. So yeah, as I say, this obviously goes beyond what we'd normally expect from entitled parents. This is just, yeah, murder, a little bit further than the usual stuff. But I just have to tell you about this story. It just blew me away when I saw it. So Jennifer Wilson has been charged with involuntary manslaughter after her £340 frame caused the death of 10-year-old Dakota Levi Stevens in Berrien County, Michigan, court document says, which is just insane. For Europeans, £340 is roughly, let me do some maths on the fly, about 150, 160 kg, roughly around there. Like, it's insane. It's double my weight, and I'm not a light person. Like, if I was lying on a 10-year-old boy, not in that way, I probably shouldn't be making jokes given what's happened here. If I was lying on a 10-year-old boy, I would be thinking, okay, this is going to be a struggle for them to breathe. Two of me? Yeah, that's insane. Anyway, here we go. Here's a picture of the lad and his foster mum. Just such a sad story. A 10-year-old boy was crushed to death after his £340 foster mum sat on top of him after he acted up, according to court documents. Jennifer Wilson was apprehended in Berrien County, Michigan, and could face up to 6 years behind bars. 6 years only is just, like, that's just insane. If you're telling me that she genuinely didn't realize that she's so fat that she could kill a child, then that's not a reason for her not to get more than 6 years. Surely that's still murder. I don't know. Get your comments down below, guys, as we go through this. Anyway, court filings say that she informed the police that Dakota Levi Stevens had fled earlier in the day, and she discovered him at a neighbor's residence. According to the court papers, the foster mum claimed Dakota began to misbehave when they returned home, throwing himself on the ground outside her house. It's alleged that she sat on Dakota
while contacting his caseworker, during which time the boy screamed and eventually ceased moving. She confessed to the police that she initially believed the child was pretending until she rolled him over and noticed his eyelids were unusually pale. The foster mother disclosed to investigators that she sat on Dakota for approximately 5 minutes. 5 minutes with 160 kilograms on top of you as a 10-year-old boy. It goes on to say Dakota weighed 91 pounds. So what's that? About 40 kilos, roughly? 42 maximum? It's hardly anything. 91 pounds is a quarter of her body weight. Absolutely insane. While Wilson tipped the scales at 340 pounds. Goodness me. The Department of Child Services had assigned the child to her care just 1 month prior to the incident, reports the Mirror US. And it's just so sad. Here's another picture of him. I mean, look, obviously his weight isn't really that important. I think even if I was under the weight of someone twice my weight, I'd be struggling to breathe. But he's a 10-year-old kid. It's absolutely insane. The court affidavit reveals that Wilson appeared visibly distraught when police arrived. By the time they reached the scene, Dakota had stopped breathing and had no pulse. Now, look, it's one thing being visibly distraught when you realize that you've killed your foster child, and only a psychopath wouldn't be visibly distraught or genuinely distraught. But if she genuinely thought that sitting on somebody a quarter of her weight for 5 minutes wasn't, maybe not kill them, but going to have serious ramifications to their health, then she must be the most stupid person of all time. Since when is sitting on a child ever been a good form of punishment ever? I don't know. He was airlifted to a nearby medical facility where he was taken off life support just 2 days later. The St. Joseph County Coroner's Office declared Stephen's death a homicide. Good. The affidavit also disclosed that authorities discovered a 20-second clip from Ring video cameras showing Wilson lying on the boy's neck and head area while he screamed. So it wasn't just on his body in its entirety, it was on the most important part of his body. I mean, it's just insane. Another video from the same camera showed Dakota still screaming as Wilson remained on top of him, his cries gradually fading. Dakota, Wilson can be heard yelling multiple times when she realizes the child has stopped moving. She then instructs one of her other children to dial 911. I was laying on him and he was acting bad, Wilson is heard saying in the video. Wilson had 3 other adopted children living in her home. Department of Child Services spokesman Brian Heineman confirmed her foster parents' license is currently suspended and under review for revocation. So there we go. I mean, that's a story. And I felt like I just had to bring it to you guys. Obviously, a lot more serious than the normal stuff that I cover on my channel. But it's just an insane story that I thought I just had to bring you lot. I just do not understand how she's gotten away with only getting up to 6 years in prison. That's the one thing I just do not understand. And again, I don't think that she was trying to kill the kid. Like, I'm not saying that for 1 second. But if you have to give someone a punishment that is worthy of what they did, and she has killed a 10-year-old child. How can that be only 6 years? And it's not as if, you know, she was driving along at the speed limit and he ran out in front of the road and she happened to hit him and then he died and it wasn't her fault. This is all her fault. It's like entirely her fault. So I just think 6 years is an absolute disgrace. But yeah, there we go, guys. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Crazy story to start things off. Now let's jump back on Reddit for a more normal story. But wow, yeah, I had to bring that one to you. Mum says she can unlock the door of her 24-year-old child's room and let herself in without permission because it's her house. I think she might be an entitled mum, or maybe I'm just a trashy kid. I'm 24 years old and a college student. I've worked in a bar for the last 2 years, and though it's a stable job, I still don't make enough to move out. I've had other higher paying jobs, but my area is just too expensive. And due to having moved to this state with my parents immediately after graduating high school and growing up a military kid, constantly moving and struggling to ever keep contact with friends that I did make because of it, I had no friends in the area that I could just move in with, and I have too much paranoia to live with strangers. I've just been living with my parents until I finished college, doing it online because my parents didn't want me having to live in a dorm and be away from them, which I should be graduating next year, and then hopefully move in with the only person I've managed to be so close with by then. We just live in separate states right now, so it's taking time. Anyways, my parents have always been very weird when it came to raising me and my older sister. There's a lot of instances, I have plenty of stories, but this one just annoys me the most and causes me anxiety. My parents' house is big, but every room except the master bedroom is pretty small. My bedroom can only fit my bed, dresser, and TV stand comfortably, so my desk and computer and bookshelf and my ferret and his big cage are in the bedroom next to mine that's used as an office for me instead. I'm 24, so obviously I love having some privacy, especially since I spent most of my life being heavily monitored and coddled by my parents, specifically my mum, because I was diagnosed with Asperger's at 4, and a bunch of other things that keep adding up as I see doctors. My sister actually told me she was a bit relieved about how little they ever paid attention to her because they were so focused on me. I was coddled so much by my mother that I'm only now learning things like cooking or doing laundry, which she still keeps me from doing because it has to be done this way, not that way. And when I ask for help, she gets mad and tells me to figure it out myself. Anyways, rambling all this to say that our mum still hovers and overwhelms me with how on top of me she is. But the worst of it is probably the fact she will let herself into my bedroom or office whenever she wants, most of the time without announcement. Reminder, I'm an adult. I'm also AFAB, and again, an adult. Though my parents don't believe I do things like that because I'm their baby who never seems interested and acts disgusted, but I act that way to keep my dad from making jokes and comments about me. So besides existing, I also do adult things in my private time. Obviously, I'll lock the door, but does that stop her? Absolutely not. So even if I'm in my office playing video games, I'll keep one end of the headphones off at all times so I can listen out for my mum moving around nearby. Goodness me, that is not going to be good for your situational awareness depending on what game you're playing. I won't have anything to hide, but my anxiety will go through the roof. Besides that, because of my dad, I hate anyone coming up or sneaking up behind me without my knowing, and she insists on my computer facing the door, so my back is to the door. So I lock my door to prevent people from doing that. Like any human being, I also lock my door when I'm changing in my bedroom. And what does my mum do? She finds my door is locked, unlocks it, and lets herself in. There was this one time, for example, where I was in my bedroom in the middle of changing. I'm literally completely topless, boobs to the wind, when I didn't hear her approach my door. All I hear suddenly is the sound of my doorknob, the lock being switched from the outside, and then the door being thrusted open. And what did I do? I body slammed the door shut and nearly hurt her doing it. I don't know what it is, but even if it's my mum, who insisted on bathing me until I was nearly 14, okay, we need to discuss that. The thought of anyone seeing me in any state of undress, even if it's just in my underwear, feels disgusting and makes me panicky. So I'm not joking when I say I was hyperventilating when I slammed into the door to shut it and was quickly trying to dress. Now while I'm doing that, my mum is shoving into the door, trying to force it open, yelling to let her in and that she wanted to tell me to do something. I told her no, that I'm changing and she can't come in. She gave up getting in, mostly because I'm a fairly strong person despite never working out, unless you count picking up tables and kegs at work for fun exercise. I just like picking up heavy things to see if I can. Respect. But I will say, the fact that she bathed you until you were nearly 14 is actually disgusting. I mean, in a hygienic sense, I imagine it's quite good for you. But in every other sense, it's disgusting. And also, I guess that depends on how good your mother is at cleaning you. Loads and loads of factors here. The main being, it's disgusting. When I finally let her in, after changing, she's huffing and mad at me, demanding to know why I wouldn't let her in. I repeated that I was changing, and she said, "So? I'm your mother. I made that butt so I can look at it." Sorry, she said what? For audio listeners, I've turned on my camera here to show my utter dismay at what I've just read. I made that butt so I could look at it. Well, if that's not the most loving thing you've ever heard from your mother, I'm not sure what is. Let's carry on. I ignored that and said my door was locked and that she shouldn't just be letting herself in and unlocking my door. She responds with, "I can do what I want. It's my house. If I want in your room, then I'll come into your room. I can unlock your door if I want. What if there was an emergency? What if you were dying? What if I was dying?" I said, "I don't care. I'm an adult. This is my private space. You do not just let yourself in whenever you want. I don't disrespect you and let myself into your room and unlock your door. don't do it to me. She just got mad and ran off, forgetting what she was going to tell me to do. Okay, and that is the end of the post, although OP has added a couple of edits with a lot more information, which I think is very relevant. First of all, thank you for all the replies giving advice and reassuring me. I'll look into a door stopper. I just worry about her reactions. Since just a few years ago, a bad experience with my dad and locked doors left me sobbing and in a panic attack on the bathroom floor while he pounded the door until it nearly broke, calling me a lot of things. So I get a lot of anxiety about my parents' reactions to being unable to get to me. I'll definitely try to get a stopper when I get paid next. Now, some more information. First of all, I don't pay rents. They want me to, and were going to have me start last year until my insurance skyrocketed, and so it's been harder for me to keep any money saved up. Secondly, it may be some time before I can fully move out due to money and the situation with my best friend, but I've been planning to pursue my master's after I finish my bachelor's at a school less than an hour away that's close to my work and requires freshmen to live on campus. The original plan was getting an internship out of state for a month or so to get practice being more independent, but I didn't get accepted to my choices, so I'm relying on pursuing a master's now for a good excuse for them to allow me to live away from them. Third, I'm not a legal dependent. Back in 2018, a month before my 18th birthday and right after I graduated high school, my parents insisted we get me an attorney and open a case to make me their dependent. I didn't want to. I knew it meant I'd have to stay forever, that I'd be stuck at home. I said I didn't want to do that, but they insisted it was for my own good and to help me. When we met my attorney, they didn't allow me to get a word in for the first 30 minutes with him. He made them wait in the other room so that he could finally be able to speak with me, and I told him I didn't want this. He asked about me, lots of questions. Finally, when the hearing occurred, my mother broke down sobbing, telling everyone in the room that I needed it, that I was going to die in a ditch somewhere, her exact words, that they just want to help me. The attempt to make me a dependent was denied, as my attorney found me perfectly capable and happily wanting to be independent and thought it unnecessary to make me into a dependent. 4. My sister and I used to speak of me living with her, but because of a medical situation with my nephew and with other family situations going on, my uncle is living with her and my brother-in-law to help with the kids and house. 5. After it being so long, I'm not sure the full name and contact of my old therapist anymore, only a last name. I don't even know the address of her office, as my parents didn't allow me to learn how to drive until I was 22. I may try to speak with our doctor about referrals, as I know the address at least. I'm just hoping I can find a day off or can find an in-person therapist, as I tried digital and was getting nowhere with the lack of privacy to speak with someone. Oh my goodness, I just realized what that means. I assume, yeah, in your own house you had your parents at your door probably listening in. Ugh, that's awful. Or actually probably coming into your door, unlocking it. Insane. And 6, my bank account is heavily monitored by my mother and she sees everything I do with it. I've been looking into opening a private account. I just worry about a new card coming in since she goes through all of our mail and I work often. And then OP says, finally, there have been many occasions where, when I get especially stressed from being busy with work and school and vent about it, my parents have insisted I just quit my job, focus on school, and they'll take care of me and my bills. I could just stay home and only do school. They stopped recently only because I told them to their faces that if I had to be home and not work, I'd go crazy like that and unalive myself. Dramatic? Yes. Incredibly so, but it is true. Some of the hardest times of my depression were when I was out of a job and trapped at home constantly. Turns out it's probably a mixture of depression and bipolar. We didn't find out I was bipolar until last year when I first spoke with our most recent doctor. And I did attempt but failed. Not that they noticed, just thought I was acting tired and told me to lay down. A somewhat minor thing, I think, but when I drive places, I have to let my mum know where I'm going. And if she says no, then I can't go. Same with trips. And she makes sure that I'm going where I said by tracking me. Oh God. The one time I turned it off, she called me freaking out. Now guys, get in the comments down below. Let me know if you agree with me on this. I think, well, this is my takeaway from what I've just read there. I think that your parents, OP, are doing all this stuff and being so controlling because they think that because you have Asperger's, autism, they're allowed to do that. And I think it's that is in their mind for some reason enabling this terrible, I mean, it's not even parenting, just this terrible control that they have on your life. I think because they think, even though clearly they're just wrong, that you need them so much. But I mean, the attorney said it himself. Like, you're completely fine. You're happily independent. You have your own life. What are they doing? The bathing till 14 thing, I think it just highlights that. This is a thing that's been going on for years, decades now probably, where for whatever reason they think that because you have autism, they get to completely control your life and ultimately, it sounds like, ruin it. It's actually insane. In many ways, is it not just ableist? I think it actually is. Your mother is just infantilizing you, I think, because you have autism. Maybe it's nothing to do with that. I just think that is the reason why, in her head, she sees it as okay. Your dad, to be fair, just sounds like an awful person anyway. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, if he is even still around. I couldn't quite work that out. But yeah, no doubt about it, your mum is a narcissist. How my entitled late aunt lost everything. Buckle up, because this story is an absolute doozy that spans nearly 4 years. Some backstory that's relevant to the story. In December of 2020, my father agreed to put his mother into a nursing home to protect his sister, my aunt, from an elder abuse investigation and getting my grandmother moved into state care. Because of my aunt's negligence, my grandmother had been hospitalized 3 times in 2 months. Once for a severe UTI, another time for an infected wound because my aunt secured my grandmother's diaper with duct tape, and the final time because of second-degree burns after my aunt left a heating pad on my grandmother's back overnight. Ironically, in October 2021, my aunt would end up in a nursing home after she burned herself with a heating pad, then didn't get medical treatment until the burn was badly infected. In January 2022, my grandmother passed away at the age of 94 years old. In my grandparents' will, they split their estate between their 2 children 50-50. However, because neither my father nor aunts was on the deed to my grandparents' house, it was signed over to a probate lawyer who would be tasked with selling it. When my father started going through his mother's affairs in February 2022, he discovered that the state was on the verge of taking the house because the only bills my aunt bothered paying were the electric and cable bills, and she hadn't paid property taxes since December 2020. My father also discovered that there were 2 massive liens on the house, totaling almost $200,000. One from the nursing home my grandmother had been in because my aunt hadn't paid them either. The other because my aunt convinced my grandmother to take home equity loan out on the house so that she could buy a car. Initially, she was only supposed to take what she needed for the car, roughly $6,000. However, my aunt went behind my grandmother's back and would end up taking the full $100,000 the bank offered them. My aunt had been able to co-sign for the loan, so she was authorized to take the full amounts. She also never made any of the monthly payments on that loan because she legitimately thought loans were money banks, just giving people free, no strings attached cash. My aunt never told anyone what she did with the remaining $94,000, but the rest of the family suspects that she gambled it away at local casinos. My aunt was also given full access to my grandmother's bank account, which she'd almost completely drained before my grandmother passed, meaning my father had to pay any outstanding bills from his own pocket, though he was eventually reimbursed by the lawyer. Goodness me, just 2 paragraphs in and already, what a woman your aunt is. Some point between late January 2022 and March 2022, in an attempt to buy herself some time to recover enough to leave the nursing home and thinking that the house couldn't be sold if somebody was living in it, my aunt convinced one of her friends to move into my grandmother's vacant house, unbeknownst to my father and the lawyer. As you can imagine, things got messy when my father found out. Initially, my aunt told my father that the man was there to take care of her 2 cats. However, even after my aunt was court-ordered to sign her 2 cats over to my father due to neglect and abuse, the man refused to leave. Both cats have been treated and rehomed and are doing well. Well, that is good to hear. We eventually found out that man had broken his lease, moved out of his apartment, and had nowhere else to go except his and my aunt's daughter's house, and who adamantly refused to let her father move in with her. Around April, my parents started to deep clean the disgustingly dirty house with the man still living there, and he did everything in his power to obstruct my parents' efforts. He'd call up claiming he was sick with COVID, which my parents almost always called his bluff on since he was physically disabled and never left the house, nor had anyone but my parents visit. One day, he told my mother, well, Sharon, who is my entitled aunt, said we'd be able to live here forever, and that my father didn't have the balls to kick me out. Well, my mum told my father what had been said, and the very next day, my father gave the man an ultimatum. My father told him, "Either you leave on your own by May 1st, or I'll have you evicted." The man chose the eviction route because my aunt told him they can't legally evict a disabled person, and he believed her. He ended up having to move in with his daughter, who is no longer speaking to my aunt because my aunt has ruined that woman's livelihood on multiple occasions. But that's a whole other story. However, before he left the house, per my aunt's orders, he stole several valuable pieces of jewellery, including a box of rings that had been willed to her cousins. We were able to get the stolen jewellery back in late 2023 after the probate lawyer had to send police to retrieve it, which is another doozy of a story. I feel like, despite the fact that this story is fantastic, there's so much more to uncover in this story. Like, there's so many different intricacies and events that I would love to delve into at a later point. But for now, goodness me. Because of the whole squatter incident, we missed a massive housing boom where houses were selling for significantly more than what they were worth. And the house was put on the market during a slump and ended up selling for almost $150,000 less than what it was worth. And it led to another lengthy legal battle with my aunt because she refused to sell or throw out any of her furniture in an attempt to buy enough time to leave the nursing home until she was court ordered to do so. Given what the house sold for, and deducting the lien from the home equity loan, the lien the nursing home put on the house had actually been dismissed by a judge, the end figure that my father ended up with was just under $60,000, while my aunt ended up with just under $50,000. My aunt got less because the probate lawyer charged her more than he charged my father because she was the one who had drawn things out for so long. Around that time, my aunt had been deemed unfit to make decisions for herself by a judge and several of her doctors, and ended up signing her half of the inheritance to my father to avoid losing it to the nursing home that she was in. My aunt passed away on August 1st at the age of 68 from multi-organ failure caused by years of heavy smoking, ignoring her diabetes, and refusing to consent to a surgery that would have likely saved her life. We didn't have a funeral for her. We simply had her cremated, and her ashes, along with pictures and other personal belongings, were given to our older daughter. My aunt's younger daughter tried to sue my father for the rest of her mother's inheritance, but the suit was quickly dropped since the money my aunt had inherited after her mother's death had already been signed over to my dad. So my aunt's daughter had no right to it. Our one saving grace in this whole fiasco was that my aunt was in a nursing home for the entire process. Otherwise, it would have been significantly messier. There's a lot I didn't go into for the sake of not typing out an almost literal novel, but I'll gladly elaborate on anything I can. Thanks for reading. Okay, goodness me, what a story. I can't quite believe that someone like that exists in your life, OP. But all I can really say is fair play to your dad for actually sticking with this and going through it, using so much of his own money and eventually ending up with really not that much for all his trials and tribulations. Although I am slightly surprised that there was any inheritance left after all of this. But wow, I mean, earlier this year, my granddad died, my dad's dad. And my dad and his brother, my uncle, have been working pretty hard to make sure that, you know, all the money goes to my granny correctly and goes through probate, etc., etc. And yeah, like going through different bank accounts and seeing what's owed and yeah, making sure everything's all right. I've never had any experience of that myself, but while reading this story, all I could think was, if one of them was against the other one and like was trying to put money into different places or was trying to take money, my granny's still around, so like the money was always going to go to her. But I mean, like, say she wasn't, and the two of them were against each other, how would you ever come to some sort of conclusion or agreement? I mean, like, imagine if this woman was involved, this horrible aunt of yours, OP. I can't imagine that the stress and the workload that would have to go on top of what already seemed to be, from my perspective anyway, a lot of work. But yeah, I guess this is not a one-off thing. People argue over inheritance all the time. Maybe not to this extent though. And also, I would say, actually, can you consider writing that novel, OP? Thank you for submitting it. Great story. But as I said halfway through that, I feel like there's so much more to unpack here, so many more events. I would read a short story based on your life and in particular, your aunt's. All right, now moving on to our next story submitted by one of you guys. Just let the kids sort it out themselves. Okay then. Backstory. I live in a town in the Netherlands with a university, and a few years ago, my girlfriend's cousin got accepted as an overseas student. My girlfriend is Japanese. Her family, father, mother, her sister, and herself moved to the Netherlands while she was younger. Her cousin still lived in Japan when she applied, got accepted, and is now living in a student room in the Netherlands. We don't really have dorms here, like in the US, but the building she lives in is maintained by the university itself. Said cousin is doing quite well for herself, got good grades, and is well on her way to get her diploma. Partly because of this, the overseas family decided to have their vacation in the Netherlands this year, both for leisure and a bit of a family gathering. This story takes place during that family gathering. My girlfriend's parents and the cousin's parents, plus yet another family, had a meeting in a restaurant in my hometown. They had 2 little kids in tow, sisters. They looked like 8 or 9 or so to me, but my girlfriend later told me they're actually 11 and 12, but did look younger than they were, probably also because of their school uniform. At least that's what it looked like to me. I really don't know. Anyway, the idea was to catch up with the family, and my girlfriend was asked if she would be willing to keep the 2 young kids busy for a few hours since she was the oldest of the lot. My girlfriend and me are in our 40s. Her studying cousin is around 25, and as said, the 2 kids are 11 and 12. Now my girlfriend didn't mind, but did ask me if I wanted to come along as well. Her cousin didn't mind. The 3 of us had met a few times before already, and well, it was all about keeping the young kids busy anyway. Oh, for the record, the 2 young kids basically only speak Japanese. They do understand bits of English and can even speak some, but it's mostly Japanese. My girlfriend's cousin speaks both Japanese and English and has even learned quite a bit of the Dutch language as well. Seriously, for the few years she's been here, it's in my opinion quite impressive. My girlfriend speaks Japanese, English and Dutch, and as for me, Dutch, obviously, and English. But over the years, I've also managed to pick up a decent bit of Japanese as well, and I can often, not always, understand the general gist of things, as long as it's not too quickly spoken or too complicated. So basically, it was all English and Japanese between us. Right then, let's get into the story now. A bully shows up. We took the kids for a walk through my hometown, and they were quite interested. But when we went past a playground, that also quickly got their attention. So the 3 of us decided to go and sit on a bench and let the kids have some fun. There were several activities, like an air balloon castle, swings, a sandbox for younger kids to play in, just plenty of things to do. The 2 wanted to go into the castle, which was fine with my girlfriend, as long as they made sure to only use the entrance and exit, which was located on our side, so they wouldn't get lost and we could keep track of them. The 3 of us talked quite a bit, but also kept eyes on the castle. So, around 15 or so minutes later, I spot the 2 again by accident near the exit with a little kid in between them. I have no idea, but I'd say she was around 8 or so. I can't really tell exactly what's going on, but I did see the kid point to the area of the sandbox, and that's where the 3 of them headed next. Before I can say anything to my girlfriend, a young lady walks up to us and asks, in Dutch, if we have seen a little girl passing by. This seems way too coincidental to me, so I ask, is she wearing a pink dress by any chance? The woman's face lights up as I tell her that she seems to be with my girlfriend's younger cousins, and I point to the sandbox. But when we look over, we now also see an older boy near the girls. I'm not good with guessing ages. Let's just say that he was bigger than them, and he's clearly harassing them. The small girl is visibly crying, but is also comforted by one of the 2 younger cousins, while the other is keeping the boy away from her. We all walk over to the sandbox just when the boy manages to shove one of the cousins out of his way, and he's clearly trying to bully the young girl in the pink dress, but is now stopped by the other cousin, which is when we arrive. The woman who is with us berates the boy and tells him to stop picking on young children, but the little brat clearly isn't very impressed. The incident. The next moment, his mother, so I assume, storms over yelling, and she has every appearance of a Karen. Or a Toki, as we tend to call them over here. A little argument ensues, mainly between the mother of the girl in the pink dress and our Karen, or Toki. It goes back and forth, but it's apparent that according to his mother, the brat did nothing wrong by picking on a girl half his own size, and this fine example of a mother even has the audacity to blame the other mother for raising such a weak little C-word. Basically, and then if you are Dutch, have a look on screen right now if you're watching on YouTube, that's what was said. And then the Karen says, kids will be kids, just let them sort out their own problems already. But she does take the boy with her as she walks away. The mother gets ready to grab her kid and leave, but in the meantime, the girl has completely calmed down and is actually having a great time with the 2 cousins. Unknown to anyone else yet at this time, my girlfriend decides to comply with the earlier suggestion.
First, she asked the mother to reconsider leaving because the kids are having so much fun together. My girlfriend also comments how amazing kids are because they clearly don't speak the same language, yet they seem to understand each other just fine and are having a good time. The mother agrees, and my girlfriend now addresses both her cousins in Japanese, and it sounded very serious to me. Something about the tone, the way she talked, and also looked at both girls, even a bit sternly. They both nodded and clearly said, "Hi," aka "Yes, mom, apologies for the pronunciation there." I think I even saw a small head bow, but I'm not too sure. Our little group goes to sit on a bench nearby, and for the next 5 minutes, nothing happens. We're just having some small talk. Then the bully returns. The mother of the small girl wanted to stand up, but gets stopped by my girlfriend, who tells her that she has nothing to worry about because her kid is completely safe. Just watch. Trust me on this. The mother is visibly uneasy, but does remain seated, which is when I noticed that the behaviour and stance of the two cousins has completely changed. They seem much more confident and relaxed. The boy starts making a fuss while one of the cousins stands up, points to him, and yells something at him, in Japanese, obviously. He once again tries to shove her out of his way, but this time she's faster. She steps aside, does something with her leg, and gives him a huge shove. Next moment, he's eating sand. No, literally. He gets up visibly angry with his face covered in sand. This time though, he becomes violent and actually tries to hit one of the cousins with his fists. Yeah, tries. She evades one attempt, then grabs his hand, spins it around, and the next moment the boy finds his arm twisted behind his back and he starts screaming. The other cousin now also stands up, pats the young girl on her head, makes another move, and once again the boy gets shoved to the ground, this time by both cousins. Hard. When he looks up, the other cousin actually makes a moving gesture as if she wants to kick him, but without actually moving her legs or anything. She's obviously just threatening him. My girlfriend pokes me with a huge grin on her face and tells me, surely that deserves a point for self-restraint. Don't you agree? She's visibly loving every moment of this. Apparently the boy isn't totally stupid and he runs off, while one cousin immediately turns to the young girl again, who is clearly still having a good time. Not the least upset with the bully. "What was that in God's name?" the mother asks. "Oh, sorry. What the heck was that?" she asks. My girlfriend tells the mother that her cousins are taking the same self-defense classes as she and her sister once did, and that she had decided to pull rank by telling her cousins that it was okay for them to actually defend themselves, as long as they didn't overdo it, of course. The mother wanted to know more about these classes, but unfortunately for her, my girlfriend had to tell her the actual school was located all the way out in a suburb of Tokyo, so not something her daughter would be able to attend. Mummy returns with a BOA, a guard. We're chatting some more for the next 10 minutes, after which the bully's mother storms over to us with a BOA in tow. BOA is Dutch for, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, which basically means so much as being a deputy, but without the proper training nor having any weapons. Generally speaking, most of them usually handle ticketing people. He tells us that he has gotten a complaint from the woman about people beating up her kid, to which the mother of the young girl immediately snaps, "Whatever happened with letting the kids sort out their own problems?" Now the funny thing is, apparently the whole spectacle didn't really go unnoticed, and before we could say or do anything, someone else had stormed over as well. "I saw the whole thing, officer," an older woman said. "Her brat," she said, pointing at the Karen, "was harassing and beating the kid in the pink dress when these two awesome kids stepped in and protected her." Meanwhile, another man had walked over. "Officer, that brat got everything he deserved. He started it. The only thing that happened was that those girls defended themselves from him." The officer listened to everyone's statements and ended up deciding to ticket the mother of the brat. I assume for disturbing the peace, but I don't know any details because at this time we decided to leave and went our separate ways. Aftermath. During our walk back to the hotel/restaurant, the cousins told us the whole story, and I actually learned something new as well. While they were in the castle, they saw the boy harassing the young girl in the pink dress and immediately decided that this wasn't right, also because he was almost twice her size. He actually pulled on her hair while she was already crying, which made the cousins plain angry. But the only thing they did was get the boy away from the girl.
One cousin distracted the boy by blocking him from grabbing the girl's hair again, and she also started taunting him while the other comforted the young girl and led her to the exit, but the one we agreed on. So the girl's mother never saw her leave and got worried. The other cousin managed to lose the boy in the crowd, at first anyway, and she joined her sister near the exit. So I asked my girlfriend why they didn't do all that stuff right away, to which she told me that they weren't allowed to. The first rule of self-defense is apparently always leave if you can. And her cousins are at a level where the use of these techniques outside their school is strictly prohibited, unless there's an actual threat, of course, or if they've been given direct permission by an elder of the same school. A rule which my girlfriend was stretching a little bit, but she told me that she would write up the whole altercation so that the cousins could take her letter back with them. She was actually not kidding when she talked about points for self-restraint, because that would actually be her advice in the letter. But yeah, typical hypocrite behavior. Let the kids sort it out until it suddenly doesn't go your way, eh? Yeah, let the kids sort it out is something you can pretty easily say when your kid is twice the size of the other kid that is in this altercation and is the one bullying them. Like, it's just ridiculous. But if you say that sort of thing, yeah, surely you have to just sit back and watch your kid just get destroyed by some good old martial arts self-defense. Like, if you say it, you got to stick by it. And ultimately, applaud the kids. You know what? Reading this, it actually does make me think, like, every kid, I think, should, if possible, go through some form of self-defense. I mean, this is just so cool. The fact that these two kids were, like, not really even that worried about this guy at all. They were trying to keep the peace, but they knew in the back of their minds, if they had to use any form of self-defense, they were fine with it, and they would be able to do what they had to do to make sure that the other girl didn't get physically harmed. It's a pretty cool position to be in. Like, seeing how calm and collected they were when they were told they were allowed to use self-defense, and just knowing their ability, pretty elite. And they were just having a good time until they had to step in again, and then actually at that point get a little bit physical. But they weren't harming the kid, were they? They were just saying, no, back off, putting them in his place, yeah, with a little bit of physicality. But it's not as if they were like scrapping him, punching him. They just made him eat a little bit of sand. Who doesn't love that? Entitled woman thinks she owns the drive-thru, throws a tantrum, and gets served by karma and the police. I'm at Chick-fil-A the other day. At this location, they have 2 drive-thru lanes. One for regular orders and one for mobile orders, where you skip the line if you use the app and scan a QR code. I always use the mobile lane because it's way faster. Well, not today. Enter the entitled woman of this story. She cuts me off pulling into the lot, red flag number 1. But whatever. There's no one else in the mobile lane, so it's not a huge deal. I pull in behind her and immediately notice she's not holding a phone to scan a QR code like a normal person. Nope, she's sitting there waving at the attendants. Newsflash, nobody monitors the mobile lane. So naturally, she starts laying on the horn like a lunatic. An employee finally comes over. Before he's even at her car, she starts barking out her order. And this is not a short one. This woman orders like she's feeding an army. After ordering, she drives off without paying. The guy literally has to chase her down to get her payment. Then she pulls up to the window where I'm still stuck right behind her, despite having scanned my code and being ready to grab my food in seconds. The employee at the window asks her to pull around to one of the waiting spots, but she refuses, saying, "No, it always takes longer if I pull around." The employee explains very patiently that pulling around won't delay her order, but it will let them serve the people behind her whose food is ready. But she responds, "It's not really fair to prepare their orders before mine when I was here first." The employee tries to explain how food stations work, but she interrupts, saying, "They should all be working on the first person's order. I know you just make minimum wage, but this really shouldn't be that hard to understand." After what feels like forever, the manager appears at the window. He leans out and very politely asks her to pull around, even promising to personally bring her food out as soon as it's ready. To top it off, he offers her a complimentary peppermint shake as an apology for the inconvenience. And this is what, guys, sorry to interrupt, this is what I hate about customer service. The fact that you have to sort of pander and make sure that customers like this are alright and still come back the next time. You should just be able to say, "No, F off, get out. I hate people like you. You're ruining my job. Why are you saying I'm on minimum wage? Why does that matter? Like, just go away." But no, it's in the interest of the manager, I suppose, to give her free stuff and Yeah, make her keep coming back. I just think it's a disgrace. Anyway, what does this Karen do? She knocks the shake out of his hand. It goes flying everywhere. On him, inside the window, total chaos. She even has the nerve to beep her horn at him. And this is why I feel like, people in customer service shouldn't try and help people like this out. Just say, no, go away. Anyway, finally, calm starts to take hold. A couple of minutes later, 2 police officers walk around the front of the drive-thru road, coming towards her. The entitled woman laughs at the manager, saying, "You really called the police?" The manager calmly responds, "No, ma'am, they were at the counter when I walked by, covered in the shake you knocked over. They also heard your shouting and honking. I told them it was fine, but they wanted to check on the situation." At this point, the officers reached her car and told her if she doesn't pull forward and talk to them, they'll arrest her for assault and move the car themselves. She finally pulls around, but doesn't stop. She just speeds out of the parking lot. The police laughed. She has a very easy to remember vanity plate, and they told the manager that they're adding obstruction of justice for failing to comply with a lawful order when they track her down. Now look, I know that not all posts here have happy endings, so I figured I'd share this one for the holiday season. Well, OP, thank you. Now there are a couple of edits that OP has added here. Firstly, they say, some people were confused about her not paying at first. What happened was she finished barking out her order and then just started to drive to the window. At this Chick-fil-A, you pay right with the person who takes your order, not at the window. Hopefully that makes it clearer. And the second edit, a lot of people are asking for an update, and I really wish I had one, but I don't even know what ended up happening myself. I was just another customer. I've tried looking up her vanity plate. Apparently I'm not allowed to share it here, but I haven't found anything related to it. If I do hear anything in the local news or get a flag for the vanity plate on Google Alerts, I'll definitely update. Thank you, everyone. And finally, here is the third update, which is interesting and includes, I've read a few comments about how the mobile drive-thru isn't different from the regular one, or how some people don't believe the shake could have gotten all over the manager. I used the word window when I probably should have said door. It's a hybrid window/door setup here. Anyway, I was there again today, so I took a couple of pictures of how it looks. This shows the mobile versus regular drive-thru, and it should be clear how somebody could knock a shake all over the manager from how they hand it out, which is just like how they're doing in these pictures. Now, I will explain these pictures to you if you're listening on podcast form or on audio platforms. But pretty simply, rather than in a normal drive-thru where there is a window and the employee will pass your food through the window into your car, in this mobile lane, the employee gets out the door, like walks out the door. So they are physically standing next to the car. A couple of images here which show that, yeah, the employees are very close to you, like they're just standing outside your car door pretty much. So yes, if you did knock over a milkshake, as you can see in the woman in the second photo, she's carrying a drink, it would be very easy to knock that and just, yeah, splash it all over her. So crazy scenes, but I suppose that is what happened here. Okay, and there we go. Maybe that is one of the reasons why we have windows at drive-thrus rather than doors, for reasons like this. I mean, maybe not. I mean, this shouldn't happen. It's absolutely ridiculous. But again, like, comment down below, guys. What do you think about what I said in terms of like these sort of fast food chains or just customer service in general, always saying that the customer's always right? There has to be a point where you just say, you know what? I don't care if we lose this customer's business for the rest of eternity, the rest of their life. It's not worth it. And I feel like we reached that stage before the manager got involved and was giving a free milkshake, right? I don't know. Maybe it's like it's good to give people the benefit of the doubt. But if this woman was doing all that crazy stuff before the manager got involved, at that point, just say, look, move along. We don't want your business here. Pretty much never want to see you again, but that's fine as we don't want to deal with you. Now moving on to our next entitled people story. Begpacker wanted to eat my lunch. Now, if you've never heard the term Begpacker before, like me, apparently this is the definition. It's a traveler who asks the public for money to fund their travels. Often Westerners who decide to go to countries where the cost of living is low, but then ask the public for money to fund it. I mean, that is crazy. They beg for charity from locals, apparently, despite coming from the West to countries where the cost of living is much lower. That's mental. Anyway, let's get into the story. On Saturday, I, a 38-year-old woman, went out to meet my friend Jerry, who is a 38-year-old woman as well, in this small village where a lot of pseudo-hippies and pseudo-spiritual people hang out. Another friend, Brew, who is a 41-year-old woman, joined, and we were strolling around when Jerry bumped into a woman she knows. This woman, Lola, was obnoxious from the beginning and started following us around. I noticed Jerry was a bit annoyed by this, but she let it go. Lola stops and buys a big plate of food, potatoes, rice, etc. She starts eating with her hands and doesn't offer me any. I didn't think much of this as I didn't want it, but this is important for later. We finally sit at a bar/restaurant at around 2 p.m. Me and Jerry order a beer. Brew orders a tea. Lola doesn't order anything. Now, I'm mostly quiet, listening to the conversation. Lola asks Brew how she survives, how she makes money. Brew is a bit taken aback, but responds and asks, "What about you?" To which Lola says, "Well, I have no money at the moment. That's why I'm asking." Brew wasn't feeling well and went home. Lola asked the waitress for hot water, fills Brew's empty teacup with it, and starts drinking from it. Wait, sorry, wow, that's interesting. I just observed. Jerry and Lola are talking, but I already didn't like Lola much. Later I learned that she is one of these white European people who travel the world by asking for other people's charity. Mind you, I'm in a poor country, and this is the type of person who asks for a discount in a local farmer's market. The topic of their conversation was incredibly annoying to hear. Basically, she had a bunch of judgmental ideas around one-night stands, and Jerry was trying to tell her this was just a constructed belief. I did not participate. By then, it was 3 p.m. and I hadn't had lunch, just a small breakfast. I ordered a portion of fries, the only vegan food in the place. It arrives and I eat it all without offering any. Jerry casually mentions that I'm a Buddhist, and Lola then says that she is surprised by this fact, as I didn't share my fries, and that I am selfish. She said she was also a Buddhist and Buddhists share. I just laughed, and I asked her whether she offered me any of her food before. She stays quiet. Then I said she can order her own fries if she wants fries. My view is this: I'm a Buddhist, but not the Buddha. Fries can look like a snack for the table, but in this case it was my main, my lunch. She just eaten a huge plate of food. I don't feel I have to share my food with anyone else, and I don't see how anyone is entitled to my food. Also, being judgmental and confrontational are both not very Buddhist practices, but I'm sure she was not enlightened, so I don't hold anyone to the Buddhist standards. However, I can admit that I didn't offer any chips on purpose, and that I do judge Begpackers. Well, that is the first I've ever heard of a Begpacker, but goodness me, I don't really want to hear about them again. They sound like terrible people. Absolutely crazy. Not gonna lie, got no idea where this story takes place, but every time that I've gone to Asia or, somewhere just like in the Far East in general, which is where, generally most people backpack from the Western world, or they go to South America, which is relatively similar, right? It's much cheaper than Western Europe or America, like considerably cheaper. I mean, it depends where you go, of course, but if you're getting sort of normal standard food at normal standard places, it's a lot cheaper, to the extent that I've always been surprised and been like, oh wow, this is great. I'm not spending much money at all to get great quality stuff. It's way cheaper than when I'm here in the UK. So for someone to be doing this, or for Begpackers to exist, is mental. I actually looked up like when this term first started, and there are a couple of articles about it from a few years ago. But yeah, it's there's not too much about it. I don't know. It's a terrible sort of thing that I just didn't really know existed. There's a couple of articles, and the titles say, "Is Begpacking the worst travel trend of all time?" And there's an article from The Guardian, which funnily has the title, "Young, Entitled and Over There, The Rise of the Begpacker." Couldn't say it better myself. Great story. Now for our final entitled people story. A man wanted me to reimburse him because his girlfriend learned he cheated on her with me. Right, a little bit of information about me. Firstly, I live in Paris, France, where health-related expenses are usually pretty reasonable. And secondly, I'm sexually promiscuous, which means I do regular STI testing. I've mostly been lucky, except once where I got a mycosis in my throat. It was gone after only 1 day of medicine, according to the test I did a few weeks later. Of course, I immediately contacted all of the partners I had sex with since my last check-in, 3 months earlier, at least the ones who had not deleted their Grindr account, blocked me, or just whose contact I didn't get. Most of them thanked me for warning them and told me they'll get checked. Great. Except for one guy. He told me he doesn't use condoms with his girlfriend and asked me how is he supposed to tell her? She doesn't know that he cheats on her, nor that he has sex with men. Honestly, I don't consider this my problem. He also tells me that he's not legally in France and doesn't have social security, so he asked me to pay for the testing. It's around €10. Honestly, if that means it doesn't spread to other people, I'm willing to pay that price. I should note at this point that I'd forgotten that there are free STI tests all around Paris. I used to go there as a student, but my insurance covers private labs, and that means that instead of waiting for hours to see a nurse, I wait 20 minutes. The guy contacted me a few days later, letting me know his test turned out positive. He asked for money for the doctor and medicine. Once again, the amount is low enough that I can easily afford it, so I give him the cash to pay those things. Probably less than €40 for the doctors and medicine. The guy then tells me that he was living at his girlfriend's place, but she's kicked him out. And so he told me that I had to pay for his hotel. I told him I wouldn't, but he insisted, and that is when I blocked him. To be frank, I'm kind of sad for him. In the first place, because I hate the fact that people have to live with the notion that the police could force them out of the country, not find a legal job, and depend entirely on their partners. Still, I don't think that part of the implicit contract between men who have quick hookups with other men goes beyond the fact that we tell each other if we ever got an STI, or warn them if they forget some things when leaving our apartment. Once, a guy forgot a ring. I immediately went to send him a message, just to realise that he'd already blocked me on Grindr. This day, I guess I got a free ring. In particular, I don't think that a quick hookup means I'm responsible for paying for his hotel. Now, while mentioning this story to a friend of mine, they noted that, firstly, if he never got tested before, it's quite possible that he was the one who gave me the STI, especially since it seems he was surprised that you could get STIs from oral sex. More importantly though, for what we know, he never got the STI, or he uses it to get money out of other people. I've not asked for his medical bill or test results. There's actually no way of me knowing if he actually got the STI. Well, there we go. One of the top comments here says, if you give a mouse a cookie, he'll ask for a glass of milk. Very valid. And I didn't even think about that last point either. Like, there is a decent chance that this person didn't have the STI, but is just obviously trying to get as much money out of you as possible. Now, I will say that I think what you did was very fair and reasonable, given the fact that you thought there was a chance that you might have given this guy the STI. So, paying for his test, paying for the follow-up, it's very nice of you. Paying for his hotel, though, because he cheated on his girlfriend with you, that's probably a step too far. It's very, very funny, though. The audacity to ask for that is just great. I also do agree with you, the fact that, yeah, you can't work legally, depend entirely on the partner, etc., and could get kicked out of the country at any moment. But then again, it's also sad that this guy is cheating on his girlfriend. So, karma is all I'm going to say. I pay rent, so I own this house. Backstory. My parents used to own a house on a big bit of land. When my older siblings went away for college, the house felt too big for our needs. So my parents decided to sell the house, but not all the land. They built a smaller house on the part of the land they didn't sell. A few years afterwards, we moved to a city 2 hours away and kept the house as a place to go during the summer. My parents decided to rent the house as it was well located and had a really nice view. Renting it meant that they could use the money towards the mortgage and taxes. Enter our Karen. Karen and her boyfriend rented the place so she could be closer to her work. From the start, my dad made it clear. The place was for rent, and my parents planned on living in that house after retiring. At that time, both of them planned to work for at least another 20 years. They would of course notify Karen in advance when they wanted to take back the house, so she'd have plenty of time to find a new place. In return, they asked that she notify them in advance should she wish to move out so they could find a new renter. The lease also stated that my parents would have some of their things in a locked storage in the basement as well as in a shed on the property, and that they would always call Karen before dropping by to get something out of the storage, which was in the basement and connected by the garage, so they wouldn't even disturb Karen. For a few years, Karen was an okay renter. She paid the rent through a check each month. Yeah, she smoked inside and didn't take care of the land, but my dad didn't make a fuss about it. The real trouble started after around 12 years. Every few months, Karen's checks would bounce back. My dad would call her to ask about it. Karen would profusely apologize and rectify the situation. Then it became every other month, until it was every month. Finally, my dad had enough and called her about the lease and the rent. During the call, Karen argued that since she had been paying rent for the past 12 years, the house was now hers. My dad was shocked since that came out of nowhere. He tried to explain to her that she was renting the place like they'd agreed since the beginning. Karen went on a female dog fit about how she'd paid so much over the years, and she was the one living there and taking care of the place, which she wasn't at all, and therefore it should be hers. She threatened to take my dad to court. Now, where I live, there are many laws which protect the renter, and it can be a real female dog to deal with when you have a nasty renter. My dad hired a lawyer to make sure everything was in order. After a meeting with Karen, where the lawyer was present, she realized she didn't have much of a case, since all paperwork concerning the house was in my dad's name and the original lease clearly stated it was a rental. My dad offered to her to stop renting, should she wish, after the whole debacle, but she actually wanted to stay in the house. He made her sign a new lease, where it stated, again, that this was a rental, and that should she not pay or cause trouble again, my dad would give her the shortest possible notice of eviction allowed by the law. Karen is still renting the house after almost 20 years. My parents are not close to retiring yet. I do hope it won't turn into a trash show when they decide to take back the house. Okay, now before we get into the 5-year update on this one, OP firstly did leave this comment below the original post saying, the question, why did your dad let her sign a new lease, has come up a lot from you guys, the people of Reddit, asking down below. So this is what I will say. 1, I don't have the slightest clue why. As I was a kid, I was a lot younger when this happened, I wasn't really kept in the loop much. It was also not the reaction I'd expect my dad to have, since he is very respectful to others and expects the same in return. Secondly, I do know the legal actions he took when she threatened to take him to court did protect himself and many future problems that might arise. I do appreciate all the concerns and the advice, although I do think my dad had a good reason to keep her as a tenant from hell after everything that went down. Okay, very interesting last line here, and I don't really understand it. Surely your dad didn't have a good reason to keep her as a tenant. Like, I kind of get it. Like, maybe at the start it was fine, and you know, money was coming in, and yeah, it was a little bit of effort eventually, but like, she was paying most of the time. But then surely by this point, when it's getting as ridiculous as this and you're having to chase her every single month, and then on top of that, you're getting her threatening you to go to the police or whatever about it and make it into a real issue. Surely at that point, it's worth the extra effort to say, okay, you're done, let's get another renter in. I know landlords don't like the turnover of having new renters, but when it's someone like this, that makes no sense to me at all. Surely you'd get her gone. I don't know. I'm not your dad, OP. Just makes the most sense to me. However, the beauty of your dad continuing to have her as a renter, as a tenant, is that we got this update 5 years later, posted just 3 days ago at the time of recording. Okay, so here we go. Here is the update. OP says, this is an update of a post from 5 years ago. Some people asked in the comments what was going on, and there has been new developments in the last few months. So here is the timeline. Since the beginning, there was a mutual agreement between Karen and my parents that they would both give a 6-month notice before she moved out, or my parents would like to take back the house. So let's move forward to the last week of June 2024. My dad received a phone call from a representative of Karen. Due to her financial circumstances, she was giving a month's notice before moving out. My parents were surprised by the short notice, of course, but didn't actually really mind it, as they were looking forward to taking back the place. Skip forward to the last week of July. Karen was set to move out, but then asked for a week extension as she couldn't find anybody to help her move. My parents agreed. She was now set to move out by August the 3rd. Skip forward to August the 4th. With the car all loaded up, with essentials, dinnerware and cutlery, small furniture, we left for our first trip to the house. The plan was to look at the state of the place, clean up a little bit, and take measurements for the remodeling my parents are planning. As we get to the place, we notice a small sign in the driveway to advertise for a garage sale at the house. We figured she'd forgotten to take it down, but we were wrong. As we get to the house, we can see boxes and furniture through the windows. Cue the shocked Pikachu face as she answered the door. It turns out she hadn't moved out yet, and she meant to call my dad to let him know, but of course she never did. She clearly didn't expect us to drop by so soon after her supposed moving date. My parents were both extremely annoyed, but they gave her an additional week and expectations of payments for the week she overstayed. Your parents, by the way, are extremely lenient. I mean, I'm pretty sure other landlords would say, no, you're done. Like, just get out or I'm calling the police. You're now 2 weeks overdue. Pay us for those 2 weeks and GTFO. But no, your parents apparently are too nice for that. Let's move forward. Honestly, it's bordering on like genuinely being too nice to the detriment of them. Like there's being nice and then there's kind of getting walked over. Let me know in the comments, by the way, guys, what you think about that one. But yeah, August the 18th now, let's move forward a couple of weeks. My parents received the confirmation that she left the week she was supposed to. They had a neighbor drop by to make sure her things were really gone, but we didn't have the time to make the trip until a week after. We found the place in a much better shape than we expected. Of course, it's not in perfect condition, as it clearly has the wear and tear of a place that's been lived in for years. It needs a good clean-up, some fresh paint in most of the rooms, and a lot of work on the land. There's also plans of remodeling a bit to make an additional room on the first floor, so my parents don't have to go up the stairs all the time. So, turning over a new leaf. This ends the whole chapter. My parents got the summer house back years before they expected, and although the renter was difficult until the end, she mostly went away without all the trouble we expected. My parents are happy to take back the place and are looking forward to all the projects they have for it. They've been almost every week to clean and sort through the things we had stored there. My dad did a fresh paint of coat in some of the rooms and they're looking for furniture. My brother went once and started to clear up some of the trees to get back the awesome view we used to have from the kitchen. My dad bought an old lawn tractor to help with the yard work and is excited like a little boy with a new shiny toy. We'd like to get the place cleaned and ready to hopefully spend Christmas camping there, as we most likely won't have a lot of furniture yet. Okay, fair enough. Maybe I was wrong actually there. Maybe the best course of action was what your parents did. Just being lenient, trying to make as little fuss as possible, perhaps in the knowledge that if they were really aggressive and, told Karen, like, actually, this is ridiculous, get out, that potentially could have caused a lot more drama than just doing what they did in the end and saying, you know what, fine, maybe we don't get paid for these couple of weeks, maybe she stays for a little bit longer, maybe it's more annoying in the short term, but long term, it's better if she just goes. I don't know, I'm still sort of the belief that she should have been kicked out a long time ago. She seemed like a bad tenant. But yeah, what do you guys think in the comments down below? Do you think OP's parents were just way too lenient here? Or ultimately, they were able just to have sort of one tenant the whole duration of the time they were renting the house, which is always a good thing. They didn't have to do that much work, and overall, it wasn't that annoying. I'm not sure. I think it would have been horrible and a lot of stress, but if they were able to manage it, which they seem to, then who am I to say that was a bad thing? So there we go. That is it for 3 hours of the very best entitled people and entitled parent stories of 2024. Let me know in the comments down below, which one was your favorite? There have been some absolute classics this year. Also, let me know if I might have missed them. I mean, there's been a lot. There always is on my channel. There's so much entitled content because I know you guys love it and I love it too. But yeah, let me know if I missed one and I might make sure to include it in the final episode I do this year, which will be my top 10 Reddit stories of the year. So if it's not in this one, who knows? It might be in that final one, but nonetheless, thank you for watching and I'll catch you tomorrow with another movie.